Hi, and welcome to A Punk with Toys, and this is Thursday with the Friend. And this week we will be talking to Mr. Wonderful. Travis, how are you doing?
I'm good, brother. How about you, man?
I'm doing excellent. It's been a long week for I've only worked 2 days, but I'm done. And I was done before I started on Wednesday.
That's awesome. I hear you,
um,
man. It's
but
a
I'm
crazy
so
week,
glad that
brother.
you're able to spend a little time with me, getting to know everyone. You're a little bit newer in the chat, but I had seen you on some others, and then you popped in, and it's great to get some new people because you gotta keep growing, and hopefully, I know was it last week? I think the last one that we did, someone had popped in and they asked a question. I said, "Hey, we don't talk about toys on this. This is different." He's like, "I'm out." Tony and I were laughing about that. So
That's great. Awesome.
anyway, if you guys haven't followed Mr. Wonderful, and it's not Paul Orndorff, Mr. Wonderful, with one small arm and one big arm. Um, though I gotta ask you, where does the name come from?
Yeah, so I'll give you the background on the name. So, I'm in IT consulting. I was working for a client that we had. I know my CEO pretty well, and we were a startup for years, doing big things. And then I was working on a client site down in New York. And when I was there, one of the clients, was kind of rough around the edges, didn't seem to get along with most of the people there, or was just hard or difficult, right? Like never smiled, never seemed happy, always just seemed really straight laced and whatnot. And the CEO at one point, just asked how I was doing, and the client said, "Oh, he's wonderful." And like it was like the first time like a positive thing had been like really expressed. So then, it had been thrown around that, hey, this is Mr. Wonderful, and now I heard that and I was like, oh, I like that. It's catchy. And I started playing music in the office from time to time, and missed some songs that I found, that said Mr. Wonderful, and things like that. And then one of my project managers on my project had heard the Mr. Wonderful, name, and actually got me a custom New York Giants jersey with it.
DJ Fevish, thank you, Mr. Wonderful, for power driving that no good Hulk Hogan.
I didn't humble him though. I didn't humble him.
All right, so that makes me laugh. So it has nothing to do with Paul Orndorff.
No, it actually doesn't. I don't know that I've ever really watched him wrestle. And I'm a huge wrestling fan. Like my entire childhood and life has been about wrestling. I dreamed of being on the stage one day. So, but I didn't watch a ton of his wrestling just because he wasn't somebody that I really attached to. But so Mr. Wonderful is not a moniker towards him or anything like that.
And,
Completely
and,
unrelated.
we're, and we're definitely going to get into that in a little bit because I had heard some stuff. I heard you say some things, and I brought up Mr. One, and I assumed like he was like your favorite wrestler, or one of them, and then you're just like, I didn't even really.
Yep.
So, so quick, let's say hi to the chat really quick because we already got a good amount of people in here, and if you haven't yet, definitely hit that like button. Let's say hi to Payne. You're going to be on Payne's show tomorrow, also.
Yes, sir.
So make sure you, not right now, jump on Payne's page and hit that remind me button so you don't forget. Matthew, the moderator, again, what he says goes. DJ Fevish, who we've already spoken to, or is it Five-ish? I think it's Five-ish. Allison Troy, another channel member. David R., Mr. Wonderful. He's here still. Action Figs, a wonderful. Check him out on Wednesdays. Viper Scout, Digital Diarrhea, PNC Games. Believe it or not, these two guys are going to be coming up in a few weeks also. And Johnny Reno. We're not going to spend too much time going through the chat. Sometimes I can ramble on a little too much. I like to keep this into a 2-hour format.
Yeah. No, I'm good, man. Love it.
All right. So, do you mind me asking what your age range is?
I'm 38, brother.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people, people don't like to talk about their age. And
I'm not 40 yet, so I'm okay. No, I'm kidding.
Not,
I'm kidding for those plus 40s and above.
I'm not 50 yet. That's what I have to say.
Exactly. Exactly.
I always tell people, especially women, I'm like, when you're like 44, if someone asks how old you are, you can say I'm almost 40.
Yeah, yeah.
As long as you're under that 5 range, you can always round down, and no one's really gonna wonder. You don't want to round up when you're like 55 and be like, I'm almost 60.
I'm almost 60, guys. No. So that's gonna be a cut, and it's gonna go viral. Is Mr. Wonderful's almost 60.
Now, whereabouts did you grow up?
So I grew up in what I deem as upstate New York, which is kind of near the Capital District, north of Albany.
Okay.
So I've lived there my entire life. I mean, within the range of that, I'm not right there. I'm more up near Saratoga. So for those that are familiar with the horse track and Saratoga track and all that fun stuff, I'm up that way.
So you were born and raised in New York.
Yep. Unfortunately, I guess. We'll see. The my wife of almost 20 years this summer, she is not a fan of the weather. The cold every year we have the winter, and she hates the cold. So every year it gets to be a little less likely that we'll stay here forever. So we'll see.
It's harder as you get older. I mean, I live literally 3 miles away from where I grew up. Now my kids live minutes, maybe a minute from where I grew up in it.
Oh, wow.
That's where their mom lives.
Yep.
It's 3 miles from here. I mean, I moved away and when I say I moved away, like 20 miles away for a couple years with a woman. That didn't work out so well. So I know what it's like to always be in the same, but you're right. Like, as you get older, the joints hurt more, and especially if you've been physical throughout your life, it just gets worse and worse. I tell people I would rather skateboard when it's 90 degrees out than when it's 55 because it just hurts.
Oh man, it's so bad when it's out there. It seems like it's worse and worse, and then the weather's always so bad. You work so much, and then you chase those 2-3 months of warm for the summer, and then you spend 9 months trying to hibernate and barely get out. So we definitely pay attention to the Carolinas as much as possible.
Yeah, and then you get those super hot days, and you're like, I don't even want to go out because it's too hot, and you're
turn the central air on. Or today I literally got done working, and I went to the room. I swapped on the swimming trunks, and I just jumped in the pool for about an hour. So
I wish I had a pool.
Oh man, I couldn't live without it at this point. COVID came in 2020. We were supposed to do a bunch of traveling, and I had them rip the ground up and put a pool in since I was gonna be stuck at home for 3 weeks.
That is, I mean. So growing up, did you have any siblings or?
Yeah. For those that have listened on the other shows that I've been on, specifically those Hella Dope guys, they asked me, and I have a younger brother, just a few years younger than me. He's the Genetti of my tag team. He's definitely Genetti. I would definitely be Shawn Michaels compared to him,
So what you did the Genetti, right?
Oh yeah, I would have thrown that son of a gun through a window. Yeah, absolutely, dude. And I wouldn't have looked back, and I would have climbed the mountain. Yes, that was me. No, I love my younger brother. Yes, I got a younger brother, and I have a younger sister too. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So are they close in age, or?
We're about 3.5 years apart each. So me, then my brother's 3.5 years younger, then my sister's 3.5 years younger than him.
That's a pretty big gap. I mean.
Oh yeah, me and my sister are very far apart in age when you figure 7 years.
Yeah.
Because I was out of the house when I was 18, pretty young, and married, and got married young right out of high school, and settled down pretty quick. So I didn't spend a lot of time at home with my younger sister, but me and my brother have always been really close.
Wait, so you said wife of 20 years.
It'll be 20 years this August in just about a month.
So you got married at 18.
Yes, sir.
That is. I have a buddy that I skateboard with, and he's married to his high school sweetheart, and he's in his early 30s, and I'm just like, that's awesome, but
yeah,
god damn.
one in a million, brother. It doesn't happen every day, man. Like, not everybody is as lucky or as blessed as I have been to have met someone at such a young age that I've been able to lean on, and she's been able to lean on me the couple times she's needed to, but all the times that I need to, and she's always been there for me. So, she picks me up. I wouldn't be a quarter of the person I am today if it wasn't for her and everything she's done and put up with. So yeah, I'm very lucky, man.
That is awesome. So growing up, you have two siblings, much younger.
Yeah.
How was your family life, like with your mom and your dad? If you mind me asking.
Yeah, no, brother, I'm open book. Yeah. My mom and dad, probably together until I was about 11 or so. And then, they kind of split up, and, we went and stayed with my mom, and, my dad would come around. I wasn't very close to my dad until I was about 19 or so. Just personality conflicts as teenage years, and, going through those years. So we weren't all that close, but, we always shared a passion for comics and superheroes and things like that. And, when I was little, he used to give me a hard time. He always rooted for the bad guys in wrestling, and I always rooted for the good guys. And, I remember Saturday and Sunday mornings watching stuff. And I think it was Sunday mornings, Superstars back in the day. And we'd be watching that. And, he'd bet me a quarter that Hacksaw Jim Duggan was going to lose to Yokozuna on Sunday morning. And I was like, no, the good guy's going to win. So, a quarter, betting it. He never took the money, but it was, those types of things.
While I was eating dinner today, I was actually watching the behind the ring. What is it? Behind the
is it the stuff is like WWE stuff, like behind the mat, or was
no,
it's the A&E or whatever it is there? Is it
not A&E, it's
it's one of those. It's one of those other networks.
Yeah,
but it's the Dark Side of the Ring.
Dark Side of the Ring, about Doink.
Great series, man.
Yeah.
Who?
I watched the other one. It was Doink and a lot of Hacksaw.
So Doink, I wrestled around with Doink. I did a training with him. I don't know who the story was about, but it was it was
about Matt.
Okay, so it's Matt Bourne.
Yep.
Yeah. So the Doink that I trained with here at one point was Ray Apollo, I believe is who it was in the mask at that point.
Yeah, it was very interesting, and to hear again, so I mean, some of these wrestlers are they're doomed from day one. It's such a brutal sport on your body. And again, I'm a skateboarder, so when I hear people saying how amazing what what LeBron James is doing at 38, I'm like, Tony Hawk snapped his femur a year and a half ago at 53, and 55 he just did that trick again, at 55. Don't give me this crap about what the guy with the greatest nutritionist, the greatest trainers is doing at 38. I would
agree with you completely right there, because that's the first thing I'd say. He's 38. He's the same age as I am. And since day one, he has had the highest paid support staff in his back pocket to ensure, and I'm not discrediting whatever ability he has, but that he has everything to make it easy. I mean, I'm chubby and out of shape, and I've worked since I was 18 years old as hard as I could to provide for my family. And that doesn't, I'll be honest, I'm tired sometimes and I don't want to go to the gym. But if I did have if I had made it, that would be what I'd be investing in too. I spend time learning how to do things on a computer to support my job. LeBron spends all day eating properly and shooting a basketball because that's his job. So
I always say there's reasons and there's excuses. I don't use an excuse why I don't go to the gym as much as I should. I just don't want to. That's just my reason. It's not an excuse. An excuse would be like, I'm just so tired. No, I just don't want to go.
That's it. I just don't have the motivation most of the time.
I have toys here to play with.
Yes. Yes. There's just other things I enjoy more.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like the way you look when you go to the gym and you're in great shape, but that is a lot of work.
Yeah. Another thing I'll give my wife credit for. I am not the same 38-year-old I was when she met me at 17, and I suckered her in, and she's amazing, and she is definitely, if not better than she was then, she is right there where she was. So,
and that's great that you have that support. Yeah. So what year were you born?
84, brother.
All right, so you pretty much, you're pretty much catching the end of the 80s toys. So yeah. Motu, G.I. Joe. I can't say Transformers because those have always, but that was really towards. You may not even have Motu. G.I. Joe would have been getting Neon.
G.I. Joe, I remember a lot of. G.I. Joe as a kid. I honestly, it's so hard because I feel like I dinged my head up a billion times wrestling, but I try to think back to those. And someone asked me a couple weeks ago on one of the shows, what my earliest toy idea was. And I was like, holy cow, I can't, let me think about this. You asked me my earliest memory. I could tell you it was Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage versus, I want to say, Andre and somebody else, and Elizabeth gets knocked off the apron. I can remember that. That's there. That was about 5 years old when that happened. But toys, I was like, man. Yeah, I mean, that's who it was. Yes, thank you. It again, can't remember exactly the details, but that's like my earliest memory because I was supposed to watch it. My dad thought it came on an hour later than it did, or 2 hours later than it did, and I missed it. So I didn't get to watch it until I was much older. But that's the memory I have, and then the replays. But action figures and stuff, I really feel like I call it like Swamp Thing with like the long hand that pulled out with a rope, and that's the one I told one of the other guys last week. I'm trying to think. Art, unboxing art. When we were talking, he got me thinking of that, and then I remember Motu. I definitely had some of them, but we didn't have a lot of money when I was growing up, so it was like birthday and Christmas if I got something.
Okay.
And I remember getting a lot of etch a sketches and things like that, and light brights, and my dad wanting me to get Converse back in the when I was a kid, and being like, no, they don't wear Converse. Everybody's wearing Nike, dude. Like,
Now, are you a good artist to get Etch a Sketch?
So I am not a good artist. No, actually, that's not true. I am an amazing artist. I can draw anything up here, but there's something that happens from here down my arm to my fingertips, which make it look like dog crap. And I have like really, really good ideas. I was not blessed with the artistic skill that my wife or even my oldest son has. And they're both artists, and they're both amazing with their art. But I don't have that talent, and I'm envious of them every day.
My best friend growing up, he was amazing, and that's one of the reasons why I hate it, because he was always very supportive. But I would spend like hours doing one picture, and I'd look over, and he'd have like 20 huge pictures of GI Joe guys all killing each other. But he used to take the Etch a Sketch, and he would do amazing art. I'm like,
I remember seeing stuff as a kid. There was like things people did. I'm like, how did you let me shake that?
But then you have to retrace back through the line, and I'm like,
yeah,
I don't have the patience for that to begin with, even if I
precision.
had
Precision.
I love what you said about amazing art. I feel like that about skateboarding. Like, I feel like I physically, I feel good. My mind is, and I get on that board, and I'm like, all right, today it's not happening.
Yeah,
that happens a lot more today than.
I love that you skateboard, man, because when I first started following your show and I saw that, Punk with Toys, I was thinking, oh, this dude must be a CM Punk wrestling fan. This is my guy.
Oh.
Like, I can get behind him. And then I started listening to you more, obviously realized that you're not a wrestling guy, at least not anymore.
I hate CM Punk.
Well, yeah, and I think I said, oh, I think I might have said something in the early chats, and it's like, this guy doesn't like CM Punk. See, and I love him. I love him from his ability, but like, that's a whole different thing. But I found out you skateboard, and I was like, holy shit, this dude skateboards. Like, he's like my age at least is kind of what I was ballparking. And I'm like, dude's out on a skateboard. That's pretty impressive. Cause like, and then I was like, oh, maybe he picked it up later in the game, but it sounds like you've been doing it forever, right?
No, I 11.
Yeah. See, I grew up in a city, and we didn't have a car growing up as a family. Like, we didn't have one. So it was, I rollerbladed, I rode a bike, or I took a skateboard. And, rollerblading was hard because you had to find a place to store them and you had to carry shoes with you. A bike where I grew up, being me, it was getting stolen most times if I had anything nice, and I was too cool to not ride something nice. So skateboard people didn't take, and you could carry it into the stores and everywhere with you. You didn't have to worry about trying to lock it up. So I started skateboarding just as a means of transportation. But I couldn't do anything cool. Like, I could ollie, and that, if that's a thing, is that a thing? Ollieing? Is that like when you like kick the board up and get it off the ground?
It's a thing.
Yeah. So I learned how to do that, and then I could almost kickflip, and that was it, dude. Like, that was it.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of people think that, like, they hear a punk with toys and they think it's like, I'm just a punk with toys, and I'm like, no, I'm a punk rocker. I've had numerous people, like, I've had if you look at, it's one of the GI Joe videos where I'm showcasing everything, and one guy makes a comment about, like, oh, you should lose that Bad Religion shirt if you want to have a bigger following. I'm like, you know what? If you can't do a little Google search and figure out that Bad Religion is one of the most successful and just one of the most successful punk bands of all time,
yeah,
then that's on you.
Yeah, that's definitely, if they think it's religious based.
Yeah,
they're clearly not your target audience, anyways.
Yeah, exactly. And if you don't like someone, because again, if you have swastikas on and stuff like that, I can understand how you might be like, all right, you know what, this is not for me. So it sounds like you weren't big with toys, but more just wrestling.
So wrestling was my thing, dude. Like,
Okay.
it was everything to me growing up. Like, if you had asked, like, so everything was wrestling to me. But like, I always, folks ask me like, oh, what do you remember collecting? So I collected toys. I had a lot of Ninja Turtles. That was a big thing when I was a kid. Ninja Turtles, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, all the movies came out like for Christmas, like 2-3 years in a row. I was given the movie on VHS after we got our first VCR, right? Like, like I got both. I got the Secret of the Ooze and the first one there, if I'm remembering correctly. And I got some of the toys, and I had a lot of those. I didn't have everything, and then I got Toxic Avengers because my cousin got big into that. So I was like, oh, those are cool. So I got some of those, and then I played with toys, but being honest, like I didn't play with toys to use them as the GI Joes or the Toxic Avengers. I ended up being like, oh, this guy's gonna be Shawn Michaels, this guy's gonna be Hulk Hogan, these guys are gonna fight, and like that's what I did as a kid. Like I turned my action figures into wrestlers because they were cheaper than buying the WWE branded ones.
That is all like that. Like so. That is awesome because I know like when you're on tomorrow with Payne, he's gonna ask about like, did you have to have like all your figures have to scale together? And
that'll be some good questions.
And that right there is really like you were taking these ideas, because we all used to take our GI Joes and make them different wrestlers.
Yep.
Because you could actually do wrestling poses.
You could
with GI Joes.
Yep. Until the rubber band snapped.
It's funny. It was called a rubber band back then. No one knew it was an O-ring.
Right.
I remember fixing mine with like double being like triple upping a rubber band or finding one of the small ones, and it was gonna snap within a month.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I honestly don't think I ever, like most times I didn't actually break the O-ring. I normally broke the hook, the eye that was on them and I don't know the O-ring stuff that well because I was so young, but I feel like they broke, but I feel like it was like the thing the O-ring hooked to that would always break on mine.
Yeah, some of them did.
I was pretty rough with them. And I had a little brother that was 3.5 years younger than me too. So, he got his hands on stuff too.
Now, how was your relationship with them?
So with my brother, so even though we're like 3.5 years apart, so me and my brother were not really, I don't want to say we weren't close, but like I was, when I was 8, he was only 5. So yeah. Like, and I was part of the 8-year-olds that came out of the 80s. So we were out until dark, until dad yelled off the porch, get your butt inside. And probably wasn't that nice. And, I grew up at that time, get on a bike, and we went on the bike trail, and I don't think our parents knew how far the bike trail was or even how far it was to get there. Ended up in like the Hudson River swimming and things like that growing up. So I didn't spend a lot of time at home with my brother. But when we had snow days and stuff, and, I would say like during the Nintendo 64 days when that stuff came out, back in like 96, 97, we had one of those, and get the game that we had. It was like WCW Revenge and WCW World Tour, and we would sit there and we would play that game together because he was as much of a wrestling fan as I was back then too. So we were both into that, and that was like a huge bonding thing for us. We played a lot of wrestling. If we had a little bit of extra money, we'd go down to like the CVS a few blocks down, and we pick up the WWE magazines together, and some cheap corpse action figures that would eventually be wrestlers when we're playing with them and stuff. So
and you said it properly. Corpse, not core.
Yeah, I don't even know if I said it right. I was like, I'm gonna wing this, and
I believe
hopefully
it's actually core, but I always called it corpse because as a kid you're like looking at C-O-R-P-S. It's corpse. Yep. A matter of fact, on the live stream, Lenny kept referring to the steel core as steel corpse, and I was laughing about it. I know people are probably flipping out about it.
Yeah.
But I love the wrestling because we used to watch wrestling, and again, when you're younger, if anyone has kids listening, you're a must right now. It was like Santa Claus. I remember hiding my face. My buddy and I were hiding our face. We couldn't watch a Saturday night's main event because we were so scared the Bulldogs were going to lose to the Hart Foundation.
Oh man!
And it scared the crap out of me. Like I was so worried. We were at WrestleMania 3.
Oh man!
So
awesome. That was the one. Was that the one where they were at multiple locations?
Nope. That was
2.
3 was 93,173
was the body slam.
people. That's where
Oh,
Hulk Hogan slams Andre the Giant.
yes. Yes.
I
How
get
could I mess that
to
up?
this day, I get chills when I watch when Andre challenged Hulk Hogan and he rips the shirt and throws down the crucifix, which wasn't supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And he challenges him, and he's like, "Are you good?" Like, it's Piper, and he asks him if he's gonna accept it. He's like, "Yes!" I get chills, just like,
Oh man.
like you're a kid, man,
Yeah.
and then your dad tells you we're going.
Yeah. That's so
And
cool, dude. That's
the
so cool.
Pontiac Silverdome was huge.
Oh yeah.
And honestly, like we pretty much watched it on what would be the big screen. I mean, the people were this big,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I was there.
You were there. That's all that matters, dude.
Yep.
That's cool.
It
I
was
have
so much
never
fun.
been to a WrestleMania myself. I've unfortunately I had a chance to almost go at WrestleMania 20. A buddy of mine that I was working with at the time had an extra ticket. He thought he might be able to bring me. Somebody else ended up coming through and he took him. So I didn't get a chance to go, which is fine. Whatever. I was a new dad and fairly young.
Yeah.
So, I was pretty busy at the time, but it would have been cool because it was at MSG. I think it was the last time they had Mania there. So
the 20, you would have been how old? How old were you? I can't believe.
I would have been 19.
Yeah, so you would have been like not a kid, but
right.
Like we went to 23 here in Detroit.
Okay.
And I was an adult.
Yeah.
I was 26 or 27. It's not the same.
So I've gone to pay-per-views and I've gone to shows.
Yeah.
I was there for the Elimination Chamber that Edge cashed the Money in the Bank for the very first time and beat John Cena in Elimination Chamber, and it was cool. So I've been to some bigger events and stuff local to where I am.
Yeah.
Next year is WrestleMania 40. It is also my 40th birthday next year. In October of next year, I'll be 40. And I have very much so been positioning my wife that I want and I must be on the floor near the front row for WrestleMania 40 because it's my 40th birthday. It's WrestleMania 40. It has to happen. And it's in Philadelphia. It's in Philadelphia. So it's not even that far for me. So,
awesome.
I keep trying to position that. We'll see if it happens. I keep reminding all my children and my wife that's what I want, but we'll see what happens.
But you're asking for one thing.
Well, one thing, but I want to be there every night, and I want to be there the SmackDown before and the Raw after, and I want front row for me and my two sons the whole time.
Now you're getting greedy. Now you're
100%. 100%.
Like I said, it's been. I mean, I don't really watch wrestling anymore. I know that Roman Reigns has been the champion for like 18 years now.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, I'm not a big fan of. Again, I don't get it. Like, doesn't make any sense to me. It was much better when you had a champion for a while, but then it was going on to someone else. But
if you followed the story deep enough as somebody who's been a lifelong fan, yes, it can be a little boring, and there's been a few opportunities where you're like, darn, why didn't they move that? But being somebody that's both inside, having some inside perspective, and also somebody who's really truly just a fan.
Yeah.
I at the beginning I didn't like it because I didn't like Roman, but like what they've done with him in this story, it's freaking amazing. Like I actually watch it, and it might be one of the best storylines I've seen in wrestling in 20 something years. And the only one that tops it to me personally is like the Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, WrestleMania 12, like that whole piece, just because again, lifelong dream, being a champion. That was always what they sold it as.
But you're also looking at it from an inside too.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
And
a wholly different perspective.
And that I fully understand because being, I was always so in depth in skateboarding, even before the internet. I knew more than most people. That you look at things at a different point of view, and it kind of sucks sometimes. It
does, man. It does.
And then sometimes it's really good, but that's awesome. I absolutely love that. Like, I love that like, you collected toys, but they all pretty much converted over to being wrestlers.
Every one of them, man. Every one of them. I was like, oh, this guy's got long blonde hair and his leg can go up for a super kick. He's Shawn Michaels. and this guy's got dark hair and I don't like him, so he's Bret Hart. And, oh, this guy's taller, so he's going to be Kevin Nash or Diesel or whoever. Painting markers when they went to the NWO and drawing on them because they were all going to be ruined with black permanent Sharpies.
All right, so normally I ask, like, when you got out of toys, what did you do? But I have a feeling you pretty much.
There was a period of time I didn't play with toys because that's not cool.
Yes.
Um, so I would say, like, I was lucky. I had a 3.5 year younger brother, so he was 3.5 years younger than me. So he was the fall guy, man. If I accidentally left some toys in the bedroom, and I had the only PlayStation in the bedroom too. I was able to say, hey, my brother might have the Xbox or the Nintendo or something out there,
Yeah.
but if I had the PlayStation that I bought myself and it's in my bedroom, and there happens to be toys there, and friends or a girlfriend were to come over or something, they see, my brother left that in there. My brother was in watching, we were playing, and he was using his toys down there. Hey, come get your crap out of my room. Don't let me find it again. And he'd be like, what are you talking? Just get your stuff, and give him that look, like, just go, dude, go. And he bit the bullet for me, and shut his mouth and moved on.
I love that. That is so awesome.
But I mean, we all did it or would have done it, most of us,
Yeah.
and so I stopped then, and then I started focusing on becoming a wrestler and training, and that was really like my lifelong dream, and it's what I wanted to do. And stupid, like, and I'm gonna put myself out on the spot, right? So, like, my wife of almost 20 years, I've been dating her for a little while at this point, and her dad, I'm meeting him the first time, and her dad's an ex-Marine. He's real gruffy, rough around the edges guy. Worked on the railroad at the time, and he wants to meet me. Right, they bring me over. I'm there. We've been dating maybe 3-4 months, and he takes me out on the back deck of his porch. Just him and I, and he's looking over his yard. And I grew up in a not, I thought my wife was rich growing up because she had a house and they had cars and all that stuff, and we didn't have that growing up. So I'm there. I'm like, he's like, oh, so you really like my daughter? I'm like, yeah, I do. Oh, what are you gonna do for a living? I'm gonna be a fucking pro wrestler, man. Sorry for the language.
No.
I didn't.
No, I'm okay with swearing. I don't do it all the time, like
Yep.
like toy anxiety or some of the other places.
Yeah, no,
definitely.
definitely.
Problem with it.
Sorry. Yeah, my apologies. Earmuffs in reverse.
No, don't. I fuck up.
Yeah, so I didn't say that to him, obviously, but I did stupidly at 17 years old tell him I was going to be a pro wrestler, and that's what I was going to take care of his little girl for. And he, didn't say much. He said, "Oh, really? Yeah, okay." And they picked on me forever about that. So I married his daughter, and we have a family of 3, and we're on our second house, and we're doing all right. But it's not on the back of a wrestler. So I trained. I did it. Before I had met her, I had all the flyers and all the paperwork ready to go down to Kentucky there, or Louisville, and go to their OVW place. I wanted to go down there and train, and I was going to sign up the same place Randy and John Cena, all those guys came from. That's where I wanted to go right after high school. But I fell in love, and I wasn't willing to switch that up. So got married.
So we got to get a little bit more in. So like I said, like if someone was to ask me, like, hey, you know what? After toys, there was skateboarding. Like that was it. For me, for what it sounded like to me is, for you, it was wrestling. Like you did.
It was wrestling the whole time, right? Like it never changed. Yep.
Yeah, like when people ask me, like, hey, what did you want to do? Like when you were younger, like my kids ask, what do you want to do? I'm like, I want to be a pro skater. Like that's like it didn't dawn on me like it probably was that it was never going to happen. But I never had an idea of like what else would I do when this ultimately doesn't work.
That's exactly where I was.
Michigan, like now people can get sponsored because of Instagram and YouTube, but if you didn't live in California, good luck getting a real sponsor. And not to mention, we're getting videos that this stuff's a year, 2 years old.
Oh yeah.
Stuff you're learning, like they've already done and they've already progressed. Now everyone sees it like that. But okay, so you decided that you wanted to.
I was going to be a wrestler, right? I mean, that's what I was going to do. And like even to this day, I tell folks that if the path had gone a different way, I would have been there. Like I was that good. Like this isn't me just tooting my own horn. Like I had the character, I had the charisma. I would watch my trainers try new moves and things like that, and I literally could see it and replicate exactly what they were trying to do, no matter how difficult or complex it was. It was just what I could do. When it came to wrestling, there wasn't anything that I couldn't do, and I did it all. And then I brought my brother into it.
Okay, so let me stop you.
Yeah.
there is nothing wrong with it is not being cocky or tooting your horn. Because when people ask me like how good were you at skateboarding, I say I was I was at the bottom of the good barrel. Like there were people a lot better than me, but no one was gonna look at me and say that I was awful. I picked up things. I was able to do things. I was willing to go out there and hurt myself, knowing that where people get paid for this shit, I actually pay people. So I mean, to me, that's exactly what you're saying. Like, you're being honest with yourself, and so many people think that's being cocky, but it's not. That's being like, hey, listen, I was good. Like you didn't go, I was Hulk Hogan.
No. No, I was never. There's no way. I wasn't big enough. I was too
and I'm
small,
sure
man.
you've met those people that say, well, yeah, if I would have had my way, I would have been as good as him. Like, no, you wouldn't.
No. I mean, he's a generational talent, generational situation. He was coming up at the right time with the conversion from the territories. Whole different bag of tricks there.
Yeah.
But I think that, with all honesty, if I had went a different path, and I wasn't lucky enough to meet my wife and my children, and even after I met my wife and got married and settled down, I went back to wrestling. And at that point I went back because at this point my brother didn't really wrestle. He liked it. He wanted to do it, but it was my thing. I was going to do that. Like, prior to getting married, that's what I was doing. My weekends were spent doing that. I went to training 3 days a week. I was, that's what I did. It's all I did. And then I met my wife. We dated. I was still wrestling. She would come support all the stuff when we were dating. Then we graduated, and, I went on, and, I was still wrestling, working full time. And, I'm going to do this dream. And, I didn't want to leave my wife, and, I didn't want to leave my girlfriend at the time. And then we settled down, got married, and had our first son. And I stopped wrestling when we had my first son because I just didn't have time for it. Right. Working 2 jobs, and I wanted her to stay home and raise our son. And that's what we chose to do. So, I did that, and, I decided to, focus on that. And then, an opportunity presented itself to get back into training and wrestling. And at this point, fast forward, I'm almost 20. And, my brother's now 17 and he's out of high school, and he's, I'm 5'8", he's, 5'11", almost 6 foot. So he's a little bit taller than me.
5'12" is 6 foot. So,
Yeah. I'm doing math here in my head, man. I got you. Don't pay attention to Hexastack because the measurements are all skewy. No. He's like 5'10", 5'11". So he's a little bit taller than I am. But he was, younger, and he wanted to wrestle. And I said, hey, let's go do this tag team stuff. And, we went and did it, and I got us the bookings. I got us trained, and, was taking us to and from shows. We were wrestling all over, the Northeast here, up into Vermont, and, down in over in Massachusetts, Connecticut, places like that, wrestling on shows with, John Cena's dad promotes a place out in Massachusetts, or did back in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And we wrestled there, and, I had some goals, a bucket list, wanted to do the Super 8, bunch of indie big things. Right. And, there's a bunch of, NWA stuff. We did some stuff with the NWA, Green Mountain, and we were doing stuff. And that was like, I'm still going to do this. I'm still chasing the dream, while working and providing and working with the family and taking care of that stuff. My wife wasn't a huge fan of it, but she supported it because she knew it was something that I was very passionate about, and missed, those couple years that I wasn't doing it.
That is so big.
So, and then, fast forward to 2006, I got a good job working for a, insurance company, one of the big ones. And, I got a good job, 9 to 5. I can balance work and school and the family and wrestling, and my weekends traveling for shows, and, we're making that work. And, my brother goes and blows his knee out. Not sure if you ever remember. Do you remember Sid Justice, Psycho Sid from the WWF? You know how he broke it. You know how So how he used to do that, right? Like he jumped off the top, busted his leg.
Yeah, I know exactly.
We don't have to talk about the video, but put in perspective, my brother had his wrestling boots. We just gotten, we started upgrading our gear. He's got some boots, and he's got a boot on, and he goes to start taking it off, and or get it on in practice, and it's just kind of over his foot, and it's fairly recent. It's only maybe 5-6 years since Sid did that. And my brother, on his foot, like he puts the boots on, so it's only part way on, and then he starts shaking his leg around, and he's like, "Oh, look, I'm Sid," and like making a joke out of it. I'm like, "Great, Nate, this is awesome." And we all had laughs. We're just ribbing about it, and then we're practicing shortly thereafter, and he does some stupid jump, like just like we're working, practicing, and he just jumped barely maybe 6 inches off the mat, blew his freaking knee out. Blew his knee out. Same night he did that. Karma at its biggest.
Yeah,
So,
but blowing your knee out is way. I'm not gonna say better, but not as gruesome or graphic.
100%, 100%.
Because
He wrestled on it for like 3 months because I had all these bookings and I needed him because they were tag team bookings. So like he wrestled on a torn ACL and PCL and meniscus for me so we can keep wrestling.
And you know what? I'm always gonna say skateboarders are the toughest sons of bitches in the world.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't deny that.
I've said for years when people talk about professional wrestlers, I go, you gotta understand, it's not a sport. I get that. People will say that, people will say that, when people say they're not athletes, it's like, would you say a dancer's not an athlete? That's all choreographed. Ice skaters, I mean, it's all choreographed, right? But you have to know what someone is doing. But I'm like, the difference with a wrestler compared to a football player is when you have a bad knee, the other wrestler knows about it. And it's like, all right, you're still going to work on that. You're still going to work with that bad knee. And we're just going to do our best to make sure that we don't hurt it anymore.
Yep.
Where a football player, if they have a bad knee, they can't do shit.
They're limited. They try to push through and then they can't.
So and someone's going after it to actually try and hurt.
100%. 100%. Yeah. No, absolutely. And, I was fortunate that he pushed through so we could finish up that series of bookings we had. And because everything was booked on a tag team. And at the time, I was smart marketing, like, hustling. It was all about me. I knew how to get there. I knew how to move things. It's just always, I call it hustle, but it's just that drive of natural understanding of what consumers want and how to present to them. So like, it's always like going back, everything I know and everything I've been successful at in life is because of professional wrestling. I tell people this all the time. I learned how to talk to people. I learned how to interact with people. I learned how to get people to be happy, sad, excited. I learned how to put in hard work, all that stuff because of wrestling. And as a result, I was like, when I was booking, I was like, man, there's so many indie guys out there that are, they just solo guys. I got a brother who wants to do this with me, and there's no real tag teams out there. We're going to get bookings everywhere. So I was always getting bookings. And, my brother wasn't as good as me. So I had to do a lot of the carrying and work in the ring, but he was good enough. And, he was younger. He didn't have the years of experience that I did. I had done it from when I was 15 till I was 18, took a break for a couple of years, and then went back and did it again, for a couple of years, with him as a tag partner. So he didn't have the years like I did and all the training that I had gone through. So, but we were good enough that we could get bookings. We looked alike. We wore matching uniforms. We had our gear all in sync. We had good music. We had a persona. It all worked.
So what name did you guys go under?
I will leave that to your fans as a challenge that if they can find, there's YouTube videos out there. Like I can go pull up the YouTube videos right now, and there's matches of me and him wrestling as a team. If folks can find it, I will tell you to send them group message. Can you do group message on Instagram? I think you can, right? So send a message to Punk and myself on Instagram with the link, and I'll give you guys a week. We'll say a week from today. If within the week from today till next week, if you're watching the replay or watching this live and you find the link to any one of the matches that I wrestled in, and you find that and send that to myself and Punk, I will put you on the list of folks who are going to get a free Hexa Stack box, a demo box in advance of the Kickstarter finishing. It'll get out to you sometime in August. And I'll send it out to you just as a, make sure you got to be subscribed to Punk with Toys. You got to be following us both on Instagram, to be entered into it. But I'll do a little raffle like that. I think it'd be kind of cool.
That is awesome. Thank you. That is awesome. Yeah. So you guys hear that? You find and I have a feeling he'll tell me, and I'm sure that I ain't gonna tell you guys.
I'll show you something after a week. Either way. And then if nobody finds it, we'll work something else out for that demo box to go out.
So did you only wrestle in that territory, or did you ever come out like towards Michigan?
No. The farthest I went was like probably Connecticut, Massachusetts, Vermont, border of Canada. I was booked to go into Canada. We were going to be up in Canada doing some stuff in late 2006. But, unfortunately in 2006, my oldest son, who was 3 at the time, was diagnosed with leukemia. And that he's 19 years old. He's out in freaking Indiana right now competing in a Muay Thai tournament. My son is perfectly healthy 19-year-old boy. I've got no like, thank you, I appreciate that, but there's many people who to this day are struggling. My son is a lucky one. My family is a
That
lucky
is
one. We've
awesome.
been
That
very
is,
blessed. So when he got sick, everything shut down, man. I at that point, up until that point, everything was, I've got my family, I've got this stuff. And I'll be honest, at that point, I was just a guy who's playing dad, playing husband, working, trying to make his dream come true in this wrestling world, because that's what I only knew and what I wanted. But when he got sick, like breaks, there's nothing else in this world that matters more than my children and my wife. And that was that was it. I was like, boop, brakes on everything. That is my focus. And it changed everything about me. I became the person I am today because of that. And my wife and the support, and so many. I'm blessed, man. I told you this before, 20 years almost this August, and ups and downs. At the end of the day, my son got sick, and I saw a lot of people that had their family, as going through the treatment for 3.5 years, watching him go through that. I saw, we saw children lose their lives. We saw families break up because they couldn't handle the stress and frustration, and people we saw, I'm blessed. I'm better than John Ramsey says it, or I think that's his name. He does like one of those, he's that money guy.
yeah.
I used to listen to him on the radio when I was delivering pizzas. And, he always says, I'm better than I deserve. He says it better than anyone. I am better than I deserve.
You know what? I love when I hear someone say, like, they look at what they have rather than what they don't have.
Oh, dude.
I can remember the first time my son was sick, and he wasn't even. It didn't even end up being anything major. But I had never dealt with kids. My ex, she has a daughter, and I remember he was at the doctor. She took him to the ER, and I'm like freaking out about it. And it ended up being nothing. So I can't even imagine. I mean, I understand like just that, but to go through something like that, like, I'm so glad to hear that he's doing.
I mean,
well.
like I'm lucky. My family's lucky. We're blessed, man. I say it like, and in the attitude, and this is what I tell people, live your life, it's half full, brother. It's not half empty. And the if I can come up from where I was and have, faced the adversities that I faced at 18, 19, 21, I was only 21 when he got sick. So I wasn't even an adult at that point. I don't care what they say. Like, I was still a freaking kid, and I was still trying to be a pro wrestler, right? Like, so, I mean, like, put that all in perspective. And, my son got sick, and I went to sleep the night after he was diagnosed. Like, we're in the hospital. They, we went and got his blood work taken, and they tell us, you've got, you got to get packs and bags. We're at home. I remember the call. We're sitting on the couch. We're in an apartment. My son's visiting with his grandpa, the one that I told I was going to be a wrestler. And, he's hanging out with him at his house. He had been having some fevers for a couple months, and, we're sitting there, and we get a call, and they're like, my wife can't even take the call. She hands it to me, and I hear them, and I'm like, they just say, pack a bag for 3 weeks. You're going to be in the hospital for some time. And they say it's cancer. And we're like, holy crap. Like, I didn't know cancer before that. Like, my grandfather had passed away from cancer, but I was like 15 maybe. So like, I didn't know that stuff. And, I remember that feeling, but I went to the hospital. We went in, we got a plan of attack, and, I fell asleep that night. And like, I don't want to get religious or anything like that. Like, cause like everyone has their own perception and perspective of things. But I woke up the next morning, and I was like, he was sick yesterday. Today he's getting better. And that's just the way I charged forward for 3.5 years. And that's it.
I love your attitude. Like, honestly, like,
thank you.
I always tell people, I have a feeling you're going to feel the same way. So like, people look at me why I still skateboard at this age. And I took like 10 years off. When my son was born, I was skating all the time again. And then it progressively got to the point where I stopped skating because my ex was pregnant. I didn't think that it was fair to leave her pregnant with her daughter. And then, he came along, and I had just stopped. And my daughter came along. And it was when when we split up that I started again at 40. So I had like 10 years off. And I don't regret any of it because I spent it with my kids, watching them grow up. And I never said I quit. But people wonder why I still do it. And I look at it, it's like, you know what? It's something I love to do. It brings me so much joy, other than my kids. It brings me more joy than anything in my life has ever brought me. And I have the flag, and I was at WrestleMania 3. But I always look at it as like, if I'm 65 or 70 and I have to walk with a cane or I'm in a wheelchair. And it's because of all the years that I put the abuse of skateboarding when I was a kid and lifting weights, things I love doing, I can accept that. Because there's all these people that are like, well, I want to be able to walk at 75. Well, I don't know if I'm going to be live at 75.
Yeah.
So I don't want to look back at age 60 and be like, I really wish I would have skated that when I had the ability to, because now I can walk around.
Yeah.
Like screw it. If I'm in a wheelchair, well,
and one of the things I'll say is like for the longest time, like when I first got married and we first started settling down, and I stopped wrestling for a couple of years in between being high school wrestler, not high school wrestling because I didn't do that,
yeah,
but between like my first run there when I was 15 to 17 to when I started again when I was 20 or 19 and just had a couple years off, like there was a piece of me missing, right? Like it felt like a piece of me was missing because like that had been me for my entire life up to that point. Like just being the guy who loved wrestling, knew wrestling, was going to be a wrestler. Like it's all I thought about. I literally, like when the internet became a thing, while everybody else was looking up stuff to enjoy themselves watching, I was up there downloading all the old wrestling stuff because I'm like, oh, I got to watch wrestling. I got to learn how to do something different. Like, like that was me. Like, nerd, geek, whatever. That was just my passion.
Honestly, if you took out wrestling and put skateboarding in, that you sound like me.
That's what it is, man. Like, but when you find that, right, it's a passion, right? It's who you are. It's a piece of you. So for me, it still is. I found ways to mask that because I didn't have the time, and I had to step away, and I had like I was forced to step away because I would say I was forced in the sense that like something so tragic or so life altering forced me away, but I did it because I was like, you know what, this is where I need to be.
Yeah.
And when all that was said and done, I've thought about it a couple times, like, oh, I'd love to go back to it, but like I realized that I'm not that person I was then. And kind of bring it full circle to toys is, when my son was sick, right before my son was sick, again, going back to the marketing hustle, always trying to, really, I was just trying to make enough money to cover my gas and make a little extra on the side of wrestling to justify doing it to my wife that I wasn't taking away from the family. Ringside Toys or whatever was a thing, and they had a bunch of clearance on these. They had a bunch of clearance on these wrestling figures, these La Resistance, which were two Caucasian dudes who, wore tights and, they had short blonde hair. And I was like, they're on clearance for $5. I'm going to take these things out of the package. I'm going to put like my likeness in hair, and I'm going to put the uniform, our gear on them. And I'm going to bring these to the shows and I'm going to sell them. So I stocked up on a ton of these Jax action figures, and I didn't really have any wrestlers at this point. I had all these toys, and I was like, well, this is what we're going to do. And then, my son got sick and I got all these wrestlers. Well, we're at home a lot. We're not going a lot of places because he's sick and we can't really bring him out a lot of places and stuff. So, when we're home, we're just playing with action figures. So that was it. So then that brought me right back to where I started as a kid, where my wrestlers were my toys. And now me and my son sitting side by side playing with them.
That is awesome. Do you have to skate to be a punk? No. To be honest, most punks actually suck at skateboarding. And most skateboarders nowadays are more into being hip hop people rather than punks. I would say I was the outlier. Growing up, like we were all punks, but yeah. So let me ask you this, because I didn't even think about going down this. We were going to talk about wrestling. I definitely wanted to. If I asked you what you are, like, would you just say you're a wrestler? Like, I mean, there's other things that you are, but would you say like you are just a wrestler? Like, do you think about it all the time?
If you had said this to me 15 years ago, what's that put me at? I would even say probably closer to, I would say probably like 17 years ago. Absolutely. Like that's what I was, maybe even 20 years ago. But after my son got sick, I wasn't a wrestler anymore. Like I'm a dad and, a husband, and that's really what I am now.
Yeah. But okay. So
sorry, maybe I didn't answer the question.
Well, I think it's hard. So I always say to people, there are skateboarders and there are people who skateboard.
Okay.
It doesn't make one better. Doesn't make one better or the other. And what I mean by that is like, I'm a skateboarder through and through. Even when I didn't skateboard, I saw handrails, I saw ledges, I see all this stuff. And that's all I just love doing it. It brings so much joy. But then there are people who ride a skateboard They can put it down for a year. They don't miss it. They pick it back up. It's like they never missed a beat. And they're doing it, and then 4 months later, they put it down and they don't care. They don't think about it. I'm like, it doesn't matter how good you are. Those people, they don't live and breathe it.
Yeah.
It sounds like if I say wrestling, like you live and you breathe it. Even now, like you know what's going on.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I would say that's true, and I would say that like I'm still wrestler, right? Like, and I was away for a little while after
even if you're not doing it, it's still
right. You're not doing it, but I still watch it, right? Like, to be as geeky as I could be, it first started out, I just watched it with my son, and then as my son got a little bit older, and we were able to get the pay-per-views. Some of my buddies would watch it, my brother would watch it, so we'd get the pay-per-views on Sundays. We'd all come over, we just have pizza, wings, and watch it. And then it slowly turned into when the WWE Network came out in 2014. It's like, well, you're paid $10 a month or whatever, and you get the entire pay-per-view. Well, we were paying $30 a month, or we're paying like $60 for WrestleMania and $60 for Royal Rumble. That's $120 a year. I'm paying the same thing for the WWE Network. I get every pay-per-view. So back in 2014, we started watching them every month, and then every WrestleMania, we were doing WrestleMania Day to the point where I legitimately was like, because I started collecting all the Mattel figures and stuff, like, and building an arena for my kids to play with and me to play with, and all that stuff. I started, WrestleMania Day was like Easter. The kids would come down the stairs and they each had their own little like colored bin with wrestling figures in them, and like the fillings, just like an Easter basket. And so I'm definitely wrestling. Like then it got. We were dressing up. We were cosplaying at WrestleMania at my house. I had my brother-in-law come over dressed like Devon or dressed like Bubba Ray Dudley, and me and my brother were dressed up like the LOD with the shoulder pads and the face paint and everything. And my son was dressed up like Sting, and we had a Doink there, and we had folks.
So awesome.
We had Bobby Heenan and Bobby Roode show up one time. So like we were getting pretty big into it. So yeah, wrestling. Yeah, I'm a wrestler. I mean, yeah,
that is so awesome. Because I've talked to, like, my daughter, she loves gymnastics. She never wanted to be on a team.
My daughter's a cheerleader.
Yeah, and I would say that she is a gymnast, even though she actually just stopped doing it because she's at an age where it's all kids because she doesn't want to be on team. She's trying to get a job there.
Yeah. Okay. So coach.
Yeah, she's trying to get a job there so she can go. She's 14, And,
okay. My daughter's 15. So I totally, and she wasn't gymnastics. She started with that. She did ballet, but she got into cheerleading when she was like, my oldest son was playing football when he was younger. My daughter saw him playing football. She saw the cheerleaders. From then on, she wanted to be a cheerleader. So as soon as she was old enough, she was cheering. She's been on the all-star teams prior to COVID. We were going to Disney on the all-star teams because she was competing at a high level. She was really talented. She blew her knee out. She blew her knee out last year, and she's working her way back to get there. So she's amazing all-star, level 2, level 3 athlete. So totally understand. She's a cheerleader. That's what her thing is.
Yeah, and I love that. That's like that. I can equate that to other people because I used to say like I tell it like you look at all these. It's mostly girls. You see some guys on Instagram that they're always doing these dances, right? And they're in their 30s or whatever, and you're like, they're just dancing. Like they just love to dance.
Yeah, man.
It's and you don't have to be in a studio doing it. Where it's like I've always said, like team sports, it's like you can't go play football by yourself. You can go shoot basketballs by yourself, but it's kind of boring. You
can't wrestle by yourself.
Yeah, that's wow.
Well.
I've been doing it for 7 years by myself.
That's OnlyFans though, but like let's stay away from
that. So we gotta wrap it up. We'll wrap it up on the wrestling, but I gotta ask. Yeah. So I asked if you ever made it out this way. So I am not a fan of this band. But did you ever watch the Insane Clown Posse wrestling?
I didn't watch them. I mean, they were in WCW, I think, or WWE. They did one of the shows.
You never saw their own because they have.
I didn't care for it. Like it was not when I was younger, and even into my mid-20s, I had a perception of what I defined as what wrestling was supposed to be. Okay. And I still to this day have like my frame of what it's supposed to be. But I don't know if you ever heard a guy named Colt Cabana. He was really close friends with CM Punk. He has his Art of Wrestling podcast that I listened to for a bunch of years while I was delivering pizzas. And one of the things he always talks about is like wrestling's an art. Not every person is going to be your Hulk Hogan or Shawn Michaels, the superstar, larger than life person. Some people are going to be Doink the Clown. Some people are going to be the Insane Clown Posse. It wasn't for me. I still didn't care for it. They had like, and again, being inside, always reading the dirt sheets and stuff. I heard they were a lot of trouble and stuff and caused problems. And I didn't like that whole genre of stuff. So I didn't really focus on it.
Okay. So Captain here says, growing up, I always thought ICP was like, they are lame, but they had their own Insane Clown Posse wrestling.
Yep.
And it was huge.
Yeah. Oh, it was big. They had like pay-per-views and stuff back in the early 2000s.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I saw them at St. Andrews Hall, where to this day is my favorite place to see a show, a punk show. I mean,
cool.
They could wrestle. And I was only wondering because, have you ever heard of the Bumpin' Uglies?
I've heard Bumping Uglies, but I don't know if it's a band or...
No, because my buddy was in the Bumpin' Uglies, him and his brother. And they're also a band, but they're pro wrestlers.
Oh, okay.
That's why I was just wondering, like, if you had ever
I hadn't heard of them. Yeah, no. Yeah. Unfortunately, I didn't. I was only got my license when I was 18, so I didn't have a chance to travel. And we grew up in a house where I didn't have. I bought my own car my first time when I was like almost 19. So it was like I didn't have that chance to do a lot of traveling. And then when I was older and could afford to do that, I kind of stuck to the Northeast and was just expanding outside of like the New Jersey, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Tri-City. I was trying to get up into Canada. I was trying to work my way down to Virginia's, but then kind of like what happened was, kind of the separate path there.
Yeah, when they entered WWF or whatever, they were assholes.
That's what I heard. So that's kind of like the attitude I've heard about them.
But all the independent wrestlers that I know that I've talked to or that worked in their federation and stuff, they talk about how wonderful they were. And these guys,
that's wrestle.
Cool. I watched them like St. Andrews Hall is a hall, and they had a steel cage match, and I watched them. Like the one guy's falling off the top of a cage to the floor through a table.
Yeah, so they were more of that gimmicky.
Oh, it was insane.
Stuff. It was that
more
hardcore
ECW type stuff.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Now I'll have to find the video where they dub over older wrestlers, and you'll die laughing.
Okay.
Can't watch it with your kids around. But
Absolutely.
But it's hilarious because they're doing commentary over this stuff, and it's just.
I've listened to some of their songs and stuff back in the days. They had a couple that I thought was cool. So, I know that they're comical in their comments on that. So I assume that they'd be semi-comical in the dubbing
I'm
over.
not into rap. I'm definitely not into their crap. All right, so obviously you move on.
Yeah.
To an actual career. So what is it that you do for your career?
So I'm an IT consultant. I work in cloud computing and develop software. Work with clients to understand their need to transition from kind of paper-based software, paper-based processes to get cloud-based and enhance their overall software solutions.
So you're the type of person I have to deal with that tell them to say, well, it's the copier they won't scan. When in actuality, it's that you guys changed the password, so it can't authenticate. But no one wants to actually show up at a client's office, so they send me out there, and I'm like, it's not my problem.
It's possible, yeah. Call a punk with toys.
So obviously, you have a very supportive wife.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how does she? So she supported you through all your wrestling.
Yep.
And now you come back into toys. Now, what is it that you're collecting? Because really, everything you're saying, you didn't really collect anything per se. You turned everything into wrestling. Yeah.
So again, going back to wrestling, kind of that. I got all these Jax figures, and was playing with those. Then. I was like, we had them, and then I started. Mattel got the license, and I was so pissed. I was like, man, I got all these Jax figures, and then Mattel took the license over, and I was like, they don't look the same. The bodies are all bigger and smaller, and I'm like, I got all these they all fit, but Jax was definitely dropping the ball on the production of their quality for a while there. But when Mattel got it, I was like, I'm not touching it. And then Kmart was going out of business, and I saw a 2-pack of the Miz and John Morrison. I was like, wow, those look cool. So I was like, they're clearance. Can't stop me on a clearance rack. So I snagged those and brought them home. And I was like, these things are pretty freaking cool. So that was about 2009, 2010-ish, somewhere in that time frame. I kind of meshed the time together.
Yeah.
But it was right around there. And that's when like the toy buying bug like really hit me. Prior to that, like it was just like I get some wrestler figures for my son. We had some stuff. And we play with them, but like that's when I really started going, I'm gonna keep buying plastic. Can I have more plastic? I need more plastic, and I would just keep buying stuff. So I got heavy into the Mattel, and of course, me being the cheap wad that I was, I started collecting all the basics because they were significantly cheaper than the elites. But then I was like, you can't do much with them, and I started building the arena, and then I wanted to have more articulation, so I swapped over to elites, and that's really where I stayed until then it was like 2012-ish, 2013. I was walking through a Target and I saw a Winter Soldier, who's like my favorite Marvel character. And it was like the MCU stuff and the legend. I was like, that dude looks cool. And my son had gotten a bunch of Marvel figures when he was younger that were part of the Toy Biz stuff. So we had those floating around, but I saw that. I was like, oh, I want that. And there was also a Red Skull, and it was sitting there, and I was like, I want those. So my family got them for me for Father's Day. And then my son just took them over and was playing with them all the time. I stuck to WWE. He's got every Marvel legend from, that time period until now. He's back the Galactus, back the Sentinel, all on his own. So he's done all that stuff. And he's got hundreds of those legends. And then my little guy, who's 12 now, he's 12, but he's definitely a kid, like younger kid. And he's got all sorts of figures, but he's a Power Rangers, Lightning collector, and he's got the Star Wars Black Series collection. And then I saw G.I. Joe Classified. I still wasn't buying for myself. Like all those things, those were for the boys. We'd get those plastic in the house. I'd play with them from time to time, but I stuck to wrestling. And then I saw the classifieds, and I was like, it gave me the same feeling like Winter Soldier gave me back at the Marvel Legends. Like, I want that.
So you were pretty much you were collecting wrestling figures for yourself.
Oh yeah. Well, my boys play with them. Like I'm not.
But they're still like in the end they come in my pile.
Yep. Exactly. 100%. No, 100%. Like I would buy them, and even if it was like a gift for the kids, my wife was like, that one's for you. Like 100%. I was like, oh, it's Christmas time. Oh, let me get this one, and we'll put the kids' names on these ones, and they're like, those are for you. So,
I had bought Andrew, my son, like the Sky Striker.
Okay.
The 30th anniversary Sky Striker. It was after Cub Scouts. Like he had just finished, and he wanted it, and he was playing with my flag as the helicarrier. The Avengers. He had all the Avenger figures, and he'd always ask, "Can I use this as the helicarrier?"
Makes sense.
Use your imagination. Like,
oh yeah,
he still called it the helicarrier. But I picked him up G.I. Joe stuff, because he mixed in, knowing that it's yours, but when you get to an age, let's say almost 17 on the 15th of this month, you're not going to want it.
Exactly.
I mean, it'll be yours, but it's going to be in my display.
Yeah. And that's my thing, right? Like with the kids,
I love that.
Like they're not big in, like they'll grow out of them. And I know, but see, as a person who went through that age where I was like, oh, let me get rid of this stuff. And like, I don't know what happened to all my stuff. I assume my brother had it, and then it just got dumped and moved on from there. He probably gave it away to one of my mom's kids' friends or whatever, like one of my mom's friends' kids or whatever. Like it disappeared. With my kids, I'm like, nah, you ain't getting rid of that stuff. That stuff will go in totes, and I will store that, and that'll be my stuff if you don't want it, or it'll be the stuff that I hold on to you for when you have a kid and you decide to get on the floor and get yelled at by your wife because you're still playing wrestling on the floor and your kid's been gone for 45 freaking minutes, and you look up at your wife and you say, what? Oh, let me just finish this match. I gotta finish this match. So like I'll hold on to them for them forever. So
yeah. That's all, because I know, like when my ex and I split, I said, you do not throw anything of theirs away till I come and look at it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what it is.
Yeah.
And there's certain things just in general that hey, you know what? They played with this. We're just going to put it away because
That's
in
what it
10
is.
years, they may be like, you pull it out and they're like, oh my God, like you kept that. Yeah. You know what? Display it somewhere in the corner of your house.
Yep.
It just brings back a memory. You don't have to be like me and go hog wild.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be like us, right? The collectors, but here's the thing, the difference between us and at least from my experience, like my stuff was gotten rid of. It went to a garage sale, went to giveaways, whatever. The stuff that my kids, as somebody who's still passionate about plastic and loves his toys and things like that, and I love it from an artistic perspective. Like, I don't know that I've actually picked them up and played with them in a long time, like other than when I'm with my kids. But like, I move them around. I'm sitting at my desk. I've got a bunch of guys here in front of me, in here that I, toy around with. And now with working a Hexa stack, I'm always using them to make sure they fit and stand and articulate properly on stuff. But like, you don't know, like I hold on to them because there might be a point in time where the kid's like, you know what? Girls were cool and they're still cool. Don't get me wrong. But that stuff's still cool too.
Yeah. And that's exactly how I would. So classified, obviously, grabbed your attention.
Classified kicked the walls down for me because I got that. And then I honestly don't even know where. I think I was like looking online because I was having a hard time scouring stuff at the stores because it was kind of in like the beginning of COVID and stuff when that happened. And when I started seeing it pop up and I kept seeing Duke, and I think I started seeing all the stupid movie figures and stuff, which I didn't care for. And I was like, oh, those look cheesy. But I liked the classified figures that were like the, non-movie associated ones. And then I was like looking online and I'm sure I found some YouTube video or something. And I came across the Valaverse stuff and I was like, oh shit, I missed out on that stuff, Kickstarter stuff. But like, I was like, oh crap, like within a month or something, like the original shipment was coming into his website. And I just went buck wild. And I know that like, there's some body mold things that are similar and stuff. But to me, as someone who's not like, I'm not blind. Like I don't have to be this. I don't have to be that. Yeah. I can like it all. And my thing is I like the stories and the comics of the Valaverse stuff. I love what he's doing for the product and stuff. Right now I know the body molds are a little limited, but they work great when you're filling in with classified. If you're not so, I don't want to say narrow-minded, I don't want to attack anybody, right? But like if you're not narrow-minded in the sense that like I can only have these types of figures, they work really well with your classified figures. They're in parallel to them.
They are wonderful. I mean,
like if you're not into the story and stuff and the history and that side, if that's not your thing, that's fine. They're great army builders. They're great for filling in. Like even some of their, Trigger. Like Trigger's got to be like one of my favorite characters. He just looks like the dude from SEAL Team 6 on CBS TV show.
Yes, he does. Like,
he makes me think of that dude. I'm like, that dude's a badass. He's just gonna show up and kick doors down. So like, like that, and like, they just got great figures. Like, and it all works together. So that was where that happened, and Valaverse really opened up my eyes to independent. Well, 3POA, I can't. You go down the rabbit hole, you start finding things. And, for the longest time, I was on WrestleFigs forum and that's all I ever did because it was wrestling stuff. But as I started digging into wanting more to build out the collection and, I don't want to say world building, but like really just kind of build out my diversity in collection, I stumbled across, the 3POAs, that type of stuff. And, started listening to that. And then I hear about Spiro, which is the AWOC stuff, which I missed out on the Kickstarter, but as soon as it was there, I got into it. And like now, like that's one of my favorite lines. Like I love the AWOC stuff. It's your review of Thane there. Like he's like such a badass looking character. I'm so pumped to go to PowerCon because there's supposed to be like a live action hammer there. Like really? I remember seeing something months ago that PowerCon was going to have that hammer. Somebody asked, or they asked somebody to make that hammer in like a life scale so people could hold it and get pictures with it. I'm hoping that's still the case. I haven't seen much about it since, but I can promise you if it's there, you're going to see Mr. Wonderful, holding that hammer.
All right. So listen, you heard how badass General Thane is. So
yeah, man, he's awesome.
Here, there's 22 people watching. Go to the video when you're done with this and put your name in for this giveaway if you live in the U.S.
If you're not a fan of, if you haven't seen AWOC and you haven't held one, and you're not an independent toy collector and you're just on the other things, give it a shot. Go get that, take that shot and see if you get the free thing that Punk's giving away, because it is an awesome freaking figure. Like, it is really, really good. Like,
yeah,
way up there.
If you want to pick up, like, honestly, like these figures here, and listen, I have my reservation about them. You know, I do fear that they go down the same road that Valiverse is, where we have the same bodies over and over and over. But I understand. Before anyone jumps, I understand. As long as you're putting money back into it and you eventually come out with new stuff. But these figures, again,
dude, Pale is awesome.
I could complain that I could complain about that it doesn't have pinless joints, but this is your first time into a 6-inch figure.
Yep.
The hands come out super easy, but they're thick, so you don't feel like they're gonna break. You can move them around. They're just fun to play with, and even if you don't collect this and you want to do any type of photography, I got these and I'm throwing like Storm Shadow on and attacking, or them going up against Wakando. They look absolutely awesome.
Oh yeah, they're awesome. It's actually one, I follow the comic lore stuff, and I'm really interested in that. It's a really cool thing. But then I also it kind of sparked the what is it, Planet of the Apes in me. So like on my Voodoo account, like in Q recently, I've been watching the Planet of the Apes again as time allows, because like not the older stuff, because I never really watched those, but like the newer ones with the Franco and all those things, just because it's like, oh, AWOC, like it's kind of like that Planet of the Apes stuff, and like the characters that they have, and yeah, like you said, right, like you're reserved to a degree. You want to see what they continue to produce, but so far the stuff is really cool. And yeah, they don't have pinless joints, but again, I have I give a pass to some of these independent lines that are coming out because of that, right? I want to see them grow. I want to see them be, I wish I had the opportunity to support them early on. I can tell you right now, like Savage Crucible, that's another one that's out there. I fully back that thing all the way, and then back the first series again. So like I started out with like very little, and I was like, oh, I'll just get the Wave 1 because they look cool and I want some of the things there. But then I was talking to Jeremy Jay, and he was he was talking about how they, he thinks they would scale well with AWOC. And then I saw a few other reviewers out there that were like comparing them, and I was like, they fit with He-Man Masterverse, and they fit with the AWOCs and Savage Crucible. I'm like, I got this whole world building thing I'm going to do with its own thing. So I went so deep into that, and I was like, I'm not missing out on the Savage Crucible.
So I show like these two together. I mean, this is perfect. This is Skogor Massiverse that he got for $4. They scale really great together.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you like animal type figures, they're just awesome. But I want to read this.
Yeah.
Ed, and again, I got this from Digital Diarrhea, from Hella Dope Toys, getting this giveaway. They're amazing figures, but I assume anyone watching this knows this already and signed up. No, Ted, they haven't. There's like 16 people that have signed up, which blows my mind. Like, it is something free. Like, I'm giving it to, and it is a big boy. It's going to cost me to ship this thing out. So if you get this, it's like a $55 figure. It's it's massive compared to the basic figures.
And what do they have to do to win that thing?
All they gotta do is there's a video that says giveaway.
Yep.
They put their name in it. They have to be in the lower 48 because I just can't ship out of the country. And then once you put your name in, you just have to be there Monday night when I do the giveaway around 10:30 and 11. So again, everyone, get over there after this.
I just did it while we're here. I just went and liked the video, and I just added a comment. So I'm hoping to get a second thing so that I can, do some stuff that I've seen customized. So please, Punk, think of me.
Hey, listen, I know it's the random. The wheel of names picks whoever it is.
No, I know. Honestly, I don't need it. I want to support you in any way I can. So I'll definitely share that on my Instagram after this too.
No, yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm just, and again, it was donated to me by someone else.
Yeah.
So that's the first time someone's donated something to the channel.
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, maybe I am actually getting popular.
No, that's cool.
um,
And it's a great way to introduce somebody to the line because it's like their big body. Though what I would say though is if they're looking at that, don't like, and that's the first one. Once you do get that, it's a really cool figure. But he's a thick, bigger boy, right? He's a
Yeah.
husky boy. So don't be turned off by like maybe some limited I mean, he's got the articulation he's intended to have, but he's
yeah.
a big guy. So it's gonna be, you know, a juggernaut. It's gonna be a
The-
larger scale dude.
Yeah, the lower end ones, they have way better articulation just because he's that big. Like,
And just so you know, something you should know. So right here, you see that word hexastack? He fits on those.
I saw that in the pictures that we're gonna pull it up.
Oh,
so.
cool.
So okay, so you're obviously into the independence and everything.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this hexastack stuff.
Yeah,
so,
brother.
So quickly, like obviously you have, you know, we talked about your wife and your kids. Obviously, you have a very supportive family with this. So how is she with supporting you? With, if she's obviously supported, like you've already told me, like she supported you through wanting to be a professional wrestler.
Right.
All right.
She didn't think it was going to happen, but she supported me.
But you know, one of the things that you said that I absolutely love, that you said, like, she didn't understand it, but she knew that it brought me joy.
Yep.
Now, I don't listen. My ex and I have a wonderful relationship, so I don't want to put her down. But she doesn't have hobbies, so she never understood my love for anything, especially skateboarding.
Yeah.
So there was never that, like, hey, one day a week, just go ride that damn thing and get out of my face. It was never like that. And I said, I would never be with it. I would never be in a relationship with someone. They don't have to like what I like. They don't even have to understand why I like it. Just accept that I like it. Just like I would accept something that they do.
Yeah.
So obviously your wife is extremely supportive with your hexastack.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so she absolutely is now. Like when she found out that I was getting a patent on it and stuff, I think that's when it was like a real deal for her. So like I had gotten a 3D printer that's off into the corner there where you can see the white reel back there. I got that a few years ago and I just was tinkering around with it. You can see kind of down on the bottom there's like a car that I started building and stuff. He doesn't
PNC, get your name in there. And who's Simone? I don't care if Simone wins or not.
Yeah. So, you know, I started tinkering around with the 3D printing and stuff. And, you know, going back to the early 2000s, you know, there was a game, again, it was a wrestling game called TEW. It was like Total Extreme Warfare. It was like a booking management simulation. Anyone who's a wrestling fan that was like really deep into it would have found that game. I had done some 3D modeling and stuff back then and actually had 3D modeled some characters that's images ended up in the game and also some logos. Like, again, on a computer, I can get some art together, but like on paper, that's not me. But I was able to get some stuff in there. So I did 3D rendering. And even in high school, I did a lot of AutoCAD stuff. And, you know, I always kind of like played around with it and really enjoyed it. So I got the 3D printer because I wanted to make like my own steel chairs and my own cages for wrestling. So again, full circle back to the wrestling because I am a wrestler, as you said.
Seriously, like I love it. Like I love it because it's like, again, I can't explain to you how many things I've seen over the years skateboarding.
Yeah.
And a quick story out of nowhere. When I used to deliver medical supplies many, many years ago, I found this handrail and I couldn't remember where it was. And then come to find out years later, and I mean many years later when I'm not even skating, it's right down the street from a client of mine. And I pass by it all the time. And then I see some local guys in videos skating it. And then I find one of the top pros that comes to Michigan, and he ripped the shit out of it. And I'm like,
oh, wow.
I'm so pissed off because I would have done that handrail well before any of these guys, just to know that I would have done it.
Yeah.
Now there's no chance.
Right.
Actually, the handrail is completely different. It's skate proof now, but
gotcha.
I couldn't find it. And then
That's
one day
funny.
I passed by and I'm like, do that Yui. I'm like, this is where it's been the whole time.
Yeah.
It's like caught in between like two streets, but I just happened to pass by it, and I'm like, son of a bitch, man.
That's funny.
But
That's
anyway,
funny. Just
what you were
yeah,
saying.
no, you're good. You're good. Yeah. So, I got the 3D printer, started modeling stuff on that. I was just kind of tinkering around with things that I found online, kind of playing around with stuff. And, the wife was not happy about that. She's like, "Oh, why do you gotta have this stupid piece of, your office looks a mess." And then I got the procs on there for making diorama stuff. And then, I got about a year ago, I got the resin printer there, which is like a Mars Pro 2. And I started playing with that, and I was like, "Oh, this is cool. It's great for making like little 3D heads and stuff." And I was like, "Cool," because now that I'm into Valaverse and Joe's and all those other things, I'm like, I need these army builders, and you run out of fake heads to use. You run out of Marvel Legends Eternal clearances to be able to put those on, making stands like that for your gun racks and things like that.
Yep.
That 3D printed.
My buddy 3D printed it.
Yep.
And
That's
this
cool.
is the place, but we will be putting them up for sale.
Oh, cool. Good deal.
So if anyone is interested, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Like when you said like 3D printing chairs and stuff, like once you have it down, because my buddy has this stuff down, like you can print if you have a good printer.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I think Gridiron Studios is showing like you have a good printer.
Yep.
You can do amazing things.
They make some really cool stuff too. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I love what they've done. I mean, I don't know if they're doing things that are different or because I've read their explanation for it. Seems like they're doing resin 3D printing on a lot of it with like the high definition, but I don't know exactly what it is.
No, it's all 3D printed, but
okay.
But I mean, there's no lines through it, or very few. Every now and then you'll catch one. They do a wonderful, wonderful job. I mean,
that's cool. Yeah, I haven't picked up any of their stuff, but I definitely have been meaning to. I just haven't gotten around to it. Definitely will outfit some of those characters, and there's a few of them I saw on there. I'm gonna probably wait for a deal on there at one point and snag something. But yeah, no. So got into that, and then I was like, probably. I mean, it feels like it's been so fast, but I feel like I've been working on it forever now. I was just messing around with stuff, and originally was working on some diorama stuff, and then I was like, man, I need to get some stands and. Actually what happened was, I have these Valaverse stands and, these things are great. Like they're good. They look cool. Like they're better than just like your generic plain nothings. They have some nice grit to them and some cool look military style, but I sell all of those because I'm like, they're just here. They're just eye level. So I started, conceptualizing this idea of a tiered system that was stackable and adjustable. And, I came up with this, and I was working with a buddy on some conceptual stuff with a fantasy app that I was building, and some of the logos had hexagons in it. I don't know what it is, but in my office, I was gonna, for doing YouTube shows and things where I wanted to start reviewing wrestling figures and stuff, I wanted to get some soundproofing pads that were hexagons. So like I was getting those online. I just like the hexagon, the honeycomb look, and I was like, crap. I was like, what if I came up with a stand that was like this interlocking magnetic modular system, after something fell off the shelf in the shower. And I was like, I'm so sick of stuff falling. And it made me think of my figures, falling off the shelves and stuff. So I just kind of came up with this idea real quick, and I got into the CAD program and I was just putting it together. And then I was like, but what if I did this? And what if I did this? And then what if I did this? And it just kind of came together. And, as soon as I had that, I talked to, one of the folks in the community, and I was just like, hey, what do you think about this? Like, you're in the industry to a degree, some things, some people. Is this a stupid idea? And he's like, no, he's like, that seems like a sound idea. He's like, if it's a good idea, bounce it off a few of your close friends, people you trust that aren't going to just like take your idea and run with it, and see what they say. And like, by the end of the conversation with him, I was like, I like this idea, whether anybody else does or not. I literally was registered in LLC within an hour. And I think within 8 hours, I was submitting my patents for everything. So, I went through and I was like, boom, boom, boom. I'm submitting the patents for the hexagon magnets, interlocking, stackable system, and, sent it in and just was like, well, even if nothing else, I have a patent, and that sounds kind of cool, right? Like, for me, like, I'm like, that's cool. I own this patent, and like, regardless of what it ever becomes. And when I started talking to the wife about it, she's like, okay, that sounds cool. Like, and then, I've been, the community has been so cool and hella dope. Really, like, they're the ones that gave me the platform to speak to it the very first time. And, I was on their show. We were just going to talk wrestling and toys. And I was like, hey, I got this idea that I'm going to be coming out with, and I'm going to go to Kickstarter for it. And 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 go to a Kickstarter model for it, because it kind of acts as like a pre-sale model for me, right? It lets me know what's out there and what's needed and what's wanted, and allows me to mitigate too much initial investment to make sure that it's there. But I mean, I've invested thousands of dollars at this point now. Myself, I've got 6 printers that I have at the house now, and these are my prototyping area here. Everything else is in the basement, and I'm just ripping off stands. I mean, like, I've got one shelf over here with just stacks and stacks of Hexa stack 1/2-inch stands. Like,
now, how many stands is it going to take for me to prop up my Dodge Journey so I can do oil changes and change the tires, do brakes?
One. One. You're just gonna have.
If you guys weren't there for the discussion when I said that.
You're just gonna have to get you're just gonna have to go to Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. You're gonna have to get your Oompa Loompas, and you're gonna have them scoot underneath that stand. I'm not quite sure we can get them there, but we can sure as hell try.
So I gotta say, I heard it on Hella Dope Toys. That's why I heard you talking about it, and I looked into it, and I talked to you about it.
Yeah.
And I think it's and again, I know you made the comment, if I can transition someone who hates stands into liking these, but I don't consider what you're doing is stands.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I understand they're gonna have a peg, like they do have a peg for it, right?
Yeah. So you'll see in some of the images and stuff, and if you go to my Instagram, like, there's removable pegs, so you can see those 2 hexagon shapes at the top there.
Yep.
I think you can see those in that image pretty well. So those are there's magnets that are going in the bottom there, and then there's these, which I have in a pill shaped bottle. So there's like this.
I want to make you big.
Yeah. So there's this little. This is an earlier prototype of the universal peg for those that don't have it. So you can do a slide in foot, but basically it just goes into here, and it sits in there, so you can slide in. Neither of these have magnets in them right now, and I just dropped that one somewhere on the floor. But here's another one, which is a little bit bigger, because again, I'm prototyping the size to make sure it's going to fit. Need to make sure it's durable. But basically, it just goes in there. They'll be magnetic, so they're gonna pull right in and add stability to there. And then there's the other ones, which are these smaller, more standard pegs, right? So like
So are you going to have different sizes for, let's say, O-ring, modern 4-inch, 6-inch?
So I don't have any O-ring size figures right now, but I will get some. Again, the Kickstarter is going to be 60 days, so it's going to allow me some time to further develop all of the offerings of all the different pegs. But essentially, I've got, like I said, you heard the collections, right? The Black Series, the Power Rangers Lightning, the Lightning Collection, the Marvel Legends. I've got AWOC, Valaverse, and I'll eventually have Savage Crucible. And I confirmed with manufacturers that Valaverse, AWOC, and Savage Crucible all use the same peg hole. So that'll all be one type of peg hole. The G.I. Joe Classified is a little different. The Mattel wrestling figures are a little different. It's only slightly, like when you get in there, you realize that, oh, wow, that doesn't quite fit the same. It's a little less snug versus the other ones. So there'll be offerings of that. So each box, the approach I'm going with for the model is, and I'll just speak to the starter pack, right? Starter pack for the Hexa stacks, $30. It's going to contain 2 1/2-inch stands, 2 1-inch stands, 1 2-inch stand, and 1 3-inch stand. And that's essentially 6 stands in total. And what your package is going to come with is enough foot pegs to fit in all of those stands. And what that'll do is allow you to, as part of the Kickstarter, when you pick your Kickstarter, before we ship out your package, you're going to be able to select the size you want for each $30 pack, right? It's not out yet. It's supposed to go live on the 10th, which is Monday. So July 10th.
And I will make sure that I push it out there. Like I will push it out in the community. It'll be on the Facebook group page. I will push it out everywhere that I can.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah, and And basically, the idea is that, you're going to, for every package. So I'm not selling them one by one because it's just going to be too hard. And being completely transparent, I showed you the stack that I've already printed, right? So those are production quality units here. Those are ones.
I'm sorry. Tony doesn't listen. He said it's not out yet.
Go to at Hexastack on Instagram. You can see the things that I've been tagging under Mr. Wonderful. So my name that's on the screen is my Instagram, and then I just recently started Hexastack on Instagram. It's not as public, and it's not as littered with my content yet, but it'll be there. It's probably the easiest way to find me is at Hexastack or at Mr. Wonderful. But that'll be live on Monday if everything gets approved. It's in Kickstarter's hands right now. Just hoping that the approval gets pushed for the 10th. That's the date I targeted.
All right, so let's take a look at them.
Yeah.
Again, I think they look really nice. So
awesome.
Here's your logo.
Thank you.
Yep. And it is a really, really good idea. So here's just the basic look of it.
That's actually the original resin prototype right there.
Okay.
That's the first one. Things have changed significantly for that. Originally, I didn't have magnetic foot pegs. It was just going to be slide-in foot pegs. But I said, you know what? I'd rather do it right than do it wrong. So let's put extra magnets in the foot peg spots so that it's easier and the stuff locks in nice.
Yeah, and so that's what's really nice is that you have these magnets that are going to hold all the stands together. Yep. Now, again, when I said I'm not a stand person, that's because I pose my figures in dynamic ways. But
yep.
I don't look at these as stands just to keep your figures there. What you've done is make it so you can see all the figures when so you don't have to have layers if you don't want, or you don't have to have a flat layer where you can't see figures behind them.
Yeah.
So, here's a look at it. And I think the one thing that may throw a lot of people off, now you explained it now, is that, you could see where, the holes are here. But as you said, that's going to be for different size pegs, which I absolutely love.
Yeah, and just to call out, there's 3 holes on the top. There's the 2 holes that are they're the hexagon shape, right? Those are where the foot pegs will go. The other hole on the top is a magnet. Because these are stackable and interlockable, that 1/2-inch one that's on the lower side there has a magnet on the top, but it also has one on the underside that can connect to the one on top. So when you're stacking them, not only are they, as you can see, the rim around them automatically by design going to essentially interlock, but there's the extra security of the fact that there's magnets inserted into each of them, both on the underside and the top side, that connect to one another. So that way it adds additional stability to the unit.
Yeah, so when you look at when I look at this, it's okay, if I just like to if I like to pose my figures, well, I think that's the next. So looking at the figures here, you can see how I can see them all. Yes, I understand you can't see their legs and everything.
Right.
But again, we all know when people have their figures all lined up, you can't see them.
Right. They're all level, especially if you're in scale and you're collecting the same scale. Yep. They're all kind of, at that level. I have some variants, like in the WWE ones, they do try to do some scaling adjustments. Yeah. And you might be able to see some variants there, but you're not going to see it in that podium style standing like you have here. And I mean, going to your point where, you can't see the legs. Well, technically you could. You just need another 3-inch, riser in the back and stack those together, which you could take 2 3-inch ones and connect them. But it's also they're not in a line. They're staggered, so you can see. And again, I really like the idea of it. I mean, first off, I like talking to you for one thing. Thank you, brother.
I love you came up with this idea that, no offense to you, it's not like it's mind blowing. It's
nope.
Why hasn't someone else done something like this?
I mean, there's other products out there.
These are the stands that I have. Look at the shape of them already.
Yeah. I mean, it's a hexagon, right? So there's things out there that, and to be honest, when I first came up with the idea, I went on Google and I tried to find stuff, and I saw some people doing a little things on Etsy and stuff, but nothing like with all of the components that mine offered. And I'm not bagging anybody else. There's other things out there. There's other products out there, and they're probably good, but I'm trying to target a specific market where it's going to be cost effective, because I recognize as a collector myself, these are accessories to my collection. And if I can spend $30 to get a figure, I'm probably buying the figure over a stand. However, if I've got a little bit extra money around, I really want to spruce up the detofs or my shelves or whatever, I might throw some money at these stands, and improve the overall look and feel of the environment.
Yeah, so look what PNC says. These are nice. I'm using lids off Spot. I don't know what Spot Shot is, and Hairspray.
Oh, Hairspray. Okay, so like Goo Off, like the little yellow things. Yeah, absolutely.
So
like I previously was using some of these, which are like some GameStop clearance Fortnite bins that I thought would be cool for GI Joe stuff, like as like except like to like carry like equipment and stuff. Like they were like $2 at like GameStop or something, but like that's what I was standing some of my wrestling figures on to give it that dynamic thing. And when I started coming up with this, I went the other direction.
So, this is, you can see these are, Power Rangers.
Yep.
So here's the AWOC figures, and this that is this big boy.
Oh yeah.
Right here.
That's my Wave 2 collection with Blight or with Blight. He's so cool too.
That's the one I really want.
Oh, he's awesome.
I just haven't ordered them because I order everything else.
Yeah.
So you can see that big boy actually fits on there.
Yep.
So and again, that is awesome.
And one other thing I just want to point out, like he fits on a single 3 by, essentially the dimensions are, just for simplicity, they're not quite 3 inches by 3 inches from end to end and corner point to corner point, but they're almost like, it's one of them. I'd have to double check, but right to left is 3 inches, and then front to back is just shy. It's like 2.98 inches or something like that. So it's essentially, for all intents and purposes, 3 by 3. He fits right there on that stand. And the foot pegs and everything right there. The thing is though, you might have a figure that's a little bit bigger than even him, and you may need to stretch him across multiple stands. And the benefit is that the pegs are removable, so you don't have to have empty pegs just kind of hanging out there wasting space. You can put in blank space fillers that I have. You don't have them. Right, you don't have them. And to me, eyesores everything. Right, like I'm not a huge fan of that. You saw the slide universal peg thing that I showed you a moment ago. I'm not a fan of those, but I'm only selling them in translucent right now. That's the only way I'll deliver them, is translucent, because I don't like the way they look. I feel like it takes away from the figure. It's like got this little clasp over a foot, and it's just, I'm not a fan of it. But there's users that want that.
But the other thing with this, and this has 4 pegs on it, you really only need 1 foot, but that means that if the foot is anywhere here and it's not plugged in, it's standing on that peg.
Yeah.
Which is, like,
it's not ideal.
Aesthetically, it looks awful.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're trying to, have it look the best, and I mean, you're spending money on something, you want it to look good. You can use the block fillers and stuff on that, and you can spread thing over 2 of these units, and in I don't know if I have the picture here, but in one of actually you can see it right here with Blight. You can see Blight's left foot, or his right foot, is on the first stand, on a 1/2 inch stand, and his left foot is actually on the foot, the 1 inch stand right next to him. So, giving it that kind of tiered approach, so you can spread them across them. You can make more dynamic poses that way, and you could use multiple foot pegs for multiple units, or you can stow them away.
Which I have this here that came with one of my what's that? It's from BBTS, the Extreme Sets. Okay. I love standing a figure with 1 foot up here. The problem is it's really high. So their knee is really up high. I love when things are done like that, where it's like they're standing up on what would be a curb or something.
Yep. And I bet with your stand that you have there, it would vary on the figure that you're using too, right?
Yeah.
So like one might only have, like one would struggle on maybe a 1/2 inch. But again, you have the 1/2 inch, the 1 inch, you have the 2 inch, the 3 inch thing. So you can tier that how you want based on what you're looking for.
So here's your Action Force and G.I. Joe.
Yep.
And again, I love the fact that, you can see the fake Airborne as the fake Chuckles in the back. And then I really would have put the Desert Rat lower where you can't see him at all.
I like him. I mean, I'm impartial. I like that. I kind of like fans of those things. I mean, I love them all. Like to me, it's cool. I mean, like I've got that busted ass Star-Lord head on a Valvor's figure back there. I think that's from like one of the early Marvel Legends. Just to give it a little one. And then I got my dirt cheap Eternals clearance figure head there on another one of their Valorverse bodies. So.
No, like I said, I mean, I love how you can see so many of the figures and how you can stack. Like, again, you can stack them to be up a little bit higher.
Yep. And I mean, you can go higher, right? Like I said, you can put a 3-inch on top of a 3-inch. It really allows for the versatility of whatever you're looking for. And, you know, I was on another show recently. I think it was the unboxing one with Unboxing Art. And I think they were like trying to measure DTOFs and like what the standard is, or somebody was on one of the calls I was on. I've been on a number of them doing like the tour a la Hexastack the last few weeks. And, during that, they said, oh, well, the DTOFs are like the go-to like premium stand or, display model. And I'm like, I honestly didn't even look up the measurements. I've got my shelves and these are the measurements. And basically I think the DTOFs are like, it's just shy of 15 inches. And my stands are about 3 inches. So you have the opportunity to go potentially 5 rows deep. Right. And then depending on how high your shelves are, you have the ability to, go. And again, remember, these are hexagons, so it's not exactly 3 inches, right? Because part of the stand behind it's going to come up on that one. So it's not a full, 2 stands lined up to each other kind of depth wise isn't 6 full inches, right? It's actually going to be a little shallow of that because of the hexagonal shape. So you can go pretty deep with your layers here to really get that dynamic set.
That's what I tell women all the time. It may not be a big full 4 inches, but I can go deep with it.
And that's all that matters is
and it will extend a little.
As long as you can get it there, that's all that matters. And then that's what you can do with Hexastack. You can get it there.
Now, I gotta ask you, these are your figures. Why is Bazooka playing an invisible trombone?
He's still playing the invisible trombone right here in front of me.
I saw it. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with that?
Because Bazooka doesn't need a weapon. His arms are the weapon. He's ready to mess stuff up, man. He's just like, bring it, boys. Honestly, I don't know. I was going through the different, trying to get some photos ready. Some of these photos are being cleaned up and used for, some of my display stuff for PowerCon. Some banners created and stuff. So I just needed to get some stuff together, so I could have some stands, to display as that's been coming together really fast.
So the next figure here's your wrestlers.
Yep. Got that Logan Paul figure.
This is kind of perfect because, again, you would think Hulk Hogan would be in the back considering he is so big.
So this is going back to my collection habits, right? I was all the way back. I was upset about the Jacks going to Mattel and switching and transitioning. And then I was cheap and poor and only bought basics and then needed the articulation. So I went with elites. And then of course, Mattel's like, we got to get you for some more money. So we're coming out with ultimates. And now I have slowly been grabbing the ultimates for my display thing. Cause I have drawers and bins of all of my elites down in my basement, right next to my 3D printing equipment. It's all down there next to my Real Skill ring and all that stuff that me and my little guy pick out sometimes when we're watching pay-per-views together and play with. So these are the unplayed with display only. I literally got Logan Paul the other day. He was sitting on my desk. My 12-year-old came in the room. He's like, you got Logan Paul? And I was like, yeah, you don't though. And this one's going on the shelf. He's like, but can you get me one too? I was like, I can't get you this one, but I'll get you an elite one down the road when they have another release. So this is my ultimate. So it's going over there.
Allison does not seem to be a big fan of Logan Paul. Hopefully that Logan Paul figure gets its butt kicked by a real wrestler's day.
He's a real wrestler. He was a state or whatever. I don't care about his persona for YouTube and all that stuff, but I will give that dude credit. He can freaking do it. Like for a guy who's not, like you've seen Mr. T, you've seen Lawrence Taylor, you've seen freaking so many actors and media people come in. He can do it.
I have seen him, but it goes back to like when you heard Shane McMahon was going to wrestle and you're like, oh great, the owner's son, and then you watched him and you went,
hey, he can swing.
Yeah, he's jumping literally across the ring.
Oh yeah,
there's no way if he says something to another wrestler, that they can say, yeah, well, you do it. Like,
no, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. He'll do it. I mean, he'll do it. He went off the cage. I mean, it was a little of a, the table wasn't the same that it was for Mick, but he did his thing. But yeah.
But when he was setting the garbage can up and jumping across,
yeah.
like, I don't care who you are. That is a long standing jump off
That's
of a ring.
20. That's 20 feet rope to rope in the WWE ring. They're 20 by 20. I mean, yeah, they got some spring on those ropes, and I'm sure they had it tweaked in nice and tight for him to get that catapult. But you still got to swing from the.
You got to swing for the fences on a rope.
Oh yeah, that's not easy. Springboard stuff is not easy. It's yeah.
So I still don't understand why you're Bret Hart here. Shouldn't he be tapping out somewhere?
I don't have a Shawn Ultimate yet, but he will be crying. I mean, you have to zoom in really close to see his tears and his. I'm
That's
upset.
Why his glasses, right?
I should get somebody out there to do a custom Brett Screwed Brett shirt and just make him wear that. Yeah, I'm not a Brett fan. I'm definitely a HBK guy.
I'm with you.
And then
Brett
these are Marvel.
The greatest.
Well, you and I hit it off. I think based on that photo you posted on Instagram or whatever back. That's where you and I started.
Me and Jeremy Kimball.
Yep.
Yeah, Jeremy's the same way, and then you have Ken Poe, who's a big Bret Hart fan because he's in Canada.
Oh, okay.
Canada's so salty because Canada's so salty because they haven't had the Stanley Cup since 1993. Do you realize that Canada has won a World Series and an NBA championship since the last time they won a Stanley Cup?
I didn't know that, but I also don't follow anything but football and wrestling. So that's the reason. They don't have any Super Bowls either. And I mean, that's important.
But the Blue Jays won it the same year as the Canadians, but it was after them. And then Toronto Maple or the Raptors won the NBA championship. So it's like, since the last time you guys have won a Stanley Cup, your trophy, you've won an NBA and a World Series championship. Which just makes me laugh. So here's your Marvel Legends.
These are one of my son's Marvel Legends here. So it's just a hodgepodge of characters that I wanted to put up there and show kind of what you could do with it. The Build-A-Figure Sasquatch in the back, just so you can kind of see the different things. And then obviously, I've got I always forget what his name is. Basically Kang the Conqueror as whatever character he was for that one. I can't think of what it is, but a man or something I can't remember the name. It's like a man of something. He Who Is. That's what it was. Yeah. So, I put him next to Sasquatch to show you like Sasquatch is in the back row, but he doesn't need to be, he doesn't need to be on a 3-inch stand because, he's so tall. I actually have him on, I think there was that's an inch and I think that's an inch and a half right there. I think that's 3 half-inch stands stacked on top of each other. And he's actually spread across 2 of them just to show like you really have a ton of playability here and how you want to stack your stands.
And then I think this is the last picture. And I really like this because my daughter collects Funko Pops. And so many times she has mentioned that like she doesn't have anywhere to put them because you can't see them in a straight row. And I'm like, this is absolutely perfect.
And this is a hard one, right? Because this is really like the Funko people are unique. I don't want to say they're unique. There's like, I don't know many Funko collectors that actually are out-of-box collectors for a lot of their serious Funkos, right? Because they keep them in those boxes. Well, like my brother's girlfriend is big about keeping in the box.
Here's what's crazy about it. So there's a Funko Pop store here. And the only reason why I found it was because every time I drive by this place, I look over at this old skate shop that I worked at. And, it's like, oh, maybe it'll be 25 years later magically, and I'll stop in there. And I look over, and it's a Funko Pop store now.
Interesting.
I just told my kids, like.
Your hobby becomes theirs.
Well, yeah. I just told them, this was a couple years ago, like a week or two before that, nothing else till Christmas. Of course, I'm like, you know what? I got to go get them and drive them here just because it's awesome. Even though I don't collect them.
Yeah.
And so every time we go there, I got to know the owners. My daughter absolutely loves going in there. She says, oh, every time we go, I got to get one. She collects Stitch. She loves Stitch Funko Pop.
Okay.
She collects other stuff. But she has this big Stitch collection, but he showed us that Funko Pops are made to be opened. And what I mean by that, if you take a credit card and you slide it up underneath, it pops open without denting everything. Then they slide out completely. They open up, and then you can stand them wherever you want, put everything back, and then you can package back up like it was never open.
I will say that I do have, like when I've opened these for my son, because these are stuff that he likes. He's a huge Loki fan, as you can see with the 4 Loki characters there between the alligator and then whatever that demon one is and the kid and then Loki in the back. He's a huge fan of Loki. So I don't know how long he'll want to hold on to these Funkos and stuff, but I'm like, I don't know if they'll be worth anything. They might end up in a landfill somewhere, but I kept the boxes and the boxes are pretty, they are easily accessible and open. Like, unlike Legends or, my Valiverse Classifieds, any of those ones where you're like cutting tape and ripping and trying to get into it and popping things out of hard plastic. Funkos are easily transferable from in plastic to out of plastic and then back again. So absolutely.
And he was saying like they're made to they don't have tape on there for that specific reason.
That's good.
Which I was like, okay.
That makes sense. So then you can you can let it breathe, but you can store it and resell it if you wanted to.
Which is Mythic Legions, like awesome. Every Mattel creation should be like that. Where it slides up, boom, thing comes out.
Oh yeah. I was trying to think about it. I had just purchased 2 of my first Mythic Legions recently. And they were like on sale or something a few months ago. So I snagged some of those. And they were easy to get in and out of.
All right. So there are a couple things that you didn't send me that I definitely wanted to address. And that is the bigger one, the bigger Hexastacks will have storage units for.
Yep. The 3-inch stands will have. So there's a few things that I'll speak to that aren't necessarily shown in these slides. I'm sorry if I didn't get those over to you.
That's fine.
So with the 3-inch stands, there's a drawer. It's hard to see in this image, but basically, I thought I had it over here somewhere. I don't know where it is right now. Sorry. The factory here is, work in progress. But basically, there's the 3-inch stand, right? Like, being honest, right? I'm trying to keep the price on this stuff as cheap as possible so that I can, take the money that I make off of it. I have a 9-to-5 that I love that I get to do every day, and it takes care of me and my family. So this is really just a side project that I'm doing for the community, for myself, and hopefully it'll grow into something bigger. Like I told you before I got on this call, I literally was hanging up and coming into this call with talking to a factory. So I'm talking to a factory about taking this to factory building and factory pricing. I'm getting everything over to them. I'm still going live with the Kickstarter. And the reason I've decided that with the resin and the Kickstarter is that what I want to do is I want to use the Kickstarter to cover the cost of some of the stuff that I've already had to put out of pocket, the patent, getting the product out there to people, and a little bit to just cover my own ass, basically. And then the rest of it, every dollar, every dime is going to go back into Hexastack with the goal of purchasing the molds. And I just learned like eye-opening details on how those molds and everything work, right before I came to this call. So the goal is to get those molds all designed and then basically continue to 3D print them until I can get all my molds that I need created by the factory and then go to, a factory distribution, which again, will bring the price down for folks. Right. So I'm not trying to get rich. I'm trying to build something sustainable long-term, recognizing that it's an accessory to people's habits and collections and hobbies. So
would you call this an accessory or a line? Tony, that's for you. Tony and I have a discussion that I tell him that gridiron are accessories, not a line, because if I don't have a line of figures to put them with, they're just accessories that sit.
So I would say that this is a accessory line. So it's a combination. It's an accessory line because it isn't just one accessory or one type of accessory. It's an accessory line, right? So like this isn't limited to action figures. Its primary focus is towards this community and the community in which I play in. But I have other things that these, removable peg pieces are going to provide. So one of the things is, you have the storage, right? That's the first piece, right? So the 3-inch stands, trying to keep the price down, I was printing those as resin and I was hollowing them out, and it was still fairly expensive to print each one of those. I'm like, man, how do I save folks money while providing them, something that's still strong and structurally sound, but also provide them an additional thing without just gutting the inside and hollowing out. I'm like, well, if I hollow it out, put some walls and a ceiling and a floor in there, and then put a freaking drawer in there, I'm cutting down on the cost of resin because I'm not curing that entire inside and filling that entire inside. I've now got a drawer and storage, which to me is like the way to go, because I hate plastic bags, but I have an entire inventory of them with my figures in them. So the idea that I can now store, and I always use the example, if somebody goes to my Instagram, and I got to get some better pictures with some of the resin prints now, of the storage and some additional, pieces. But, I know without a doubt I can fit at least six of my AWOC heads that I got, the spare heads that I got from the head packs. I can fit six of those in one of those 3-inch stand holders with ease. I have the Zack Ryder or Matt Cardona Super 7 figure, just because I met him in person and got one for autographed and one for my own collection. My younger son has his autograph to him in his room. But I opened the box of the one that I had, and he's got a ton of accessories and stuff. And I threw those all in there, to show in perspective what it can contain. And all his hands, the 2 or 3 extra heads that he has, all fit in there with additional space. So the original idea of the drawer wasn't for the action figure accessories. It was for the peg accessories. So originally it was like a self-containing peg holder for all of the extra pegs you may have, so you don't lose them. And it actually came from a buddy of mine who was like, well, what's going to happen when little Johnny's buying, mom's buying these, and then he loses the damn pegs, and where did I put all of them? And then it's in a bag somewhere nobody knows about. And I was like, well, what about a drawer where you could store the pegs? And then I was like, well, you could store the pegs and the accessories. So that's the idea.
Honestly, that is so smart, because you're right. Like, it's so easy to lose things. And then my other question was, and I didn't even think of this while I was watching it, is, I know you said this is your first one. Have you thought about making an accessory that would go around it to make this completely flat? Like an add-on, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I hadn't, like, just a flat, like, cap almost.
Yeah, we're like, because obviously you need this to stack it.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say where you would have the accessories that you could put it on top, so they'd be completely flat, which would give a little bit more space for feet and everything.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't thought about that, but it's something that's now in the backlog of ideas that I have. I mean, for the Kickstarter, not everything that I plan to, for the Kickstarter, I see that as, one thing I've told folks is that I want to deliver Hexastack as a product that is not, oh, hey, here's Hexastack 1. These are all the ones Travis printed, from resin, right? They're not, and then when I transition to a factory, oh, but those are version 2.0 because they're the factory. Yeah. Just talking to the guys at the factory tonight, there will be some changes. And I've been very advocating for the fact that, if I go to a factory, I want to make sure that they all work together. So that's the first and foremost. Like, yes. I don't want folks to be like, oh, let me buy these, but then not be able to work with that or have to separate them. So I'm like right now, and I'm saying it, and I'll say it again, even having talked to them, whatever I produce at my level now will be completely workable with whatever comes out of a factory later. They're not going to be an inch taller or inch wider. It's going to be integrated within the same space, should have the same functionality. It's going to have the same functionality. I won't say it should. It will work the same and work together. So it's not like a version 1, version 2 situation. One of the large reasons I'm going with the in-house as opposed to the factory is, one, I unfortunately wasn't able to get in touch with the factory as soon as I wanted to. It was just took me longer. I originally didn't even know I had access to a factory, but luckily had some contacts that made me made the contact for me. That said, right now I have, the 1/2 inch, the 1 inch, the 2 inch, and the 3 inch, 3 inch having the storage. The 1/2 inches will also have, if the Kickstarter goes well, which I do expect it to, there's going to be an unlock for textured 1/2 inch stands. So there's some broken stone, some wooden texture. There's a sci-fi texture coming, and then there's also and a stone brick one, right? So like a stone path, almost like medieval style. Yeah, they won't be colored. You'd have to color them yourself because I'm 3D printing these, and but again, it's resin. And there's no lines, there's no seam lines. Every now and again you see a little dimple from where some of the things are, but they impact the functionality in no way. You get that functionality and that ability. I will say that the patterns are going to be part of the Kickstarter. The flight stands will be part of the Kickstarter. There's a front nameplate and
Wait, flight stands.
oh yeah, brother, flight stands, man.
You didn't mention anything like.
Yeah, flight stands, dude. Yeah, there's flight stands. I've shown them on. I have a slide deck that I've been sharing around with some of them. I'm not sure you got access to that in advance of the call, so I do apologize. But essentially, there's a flight stand, which you remember those magnetic holes that your foot pegs go in.
Yes.
Yeah. It's going to have a bottom piece that fits right into one of those holes and hooks in through a magnet there. So you replace the foot peg with a magnet hole and you can bring it up, and it's got two main bars and then a number of swivelly joints so you can pose it and bend it how you want. And additionally, it has a clamp fold, all in translucent. It's going to be a translucent print so that it's not visible to the consumer. And you can, I always use the example like the 90s X-Men cartoon, and those recently came out. So I use that as an example that, you could have all those guys sitting there and you could have Rogue and Storm kind of popped up in the back over your figures above that 3-inch stand with, Cyclops in the middle. And additionally, what that flight stand will also have the opportunity to get is you can choose to purchase another peg, the bottom. So they're all screwed apart. So they all screw in to the plastic. So you can adjust the model, the flight stand how you need to. But the bottom one by default will come with the foot peg stand plug-in. So you can plug it right into that. But it also has the ability to use, you can swap that bottom off. And let's say it's the back row of your 3-inch, stand diorama and you have it on your shelf and you've got a free magnet that's not attached to anything in the back. And you got a character sitting on that front stand, on that 3-inch stand. What you can do is you can use that other part you can purchase to connect and replace the foot peg one and attach it to there and use that to then arc the person over, not even taking up one of your stands. So it almost can hold your truck.
I love it.
So there's that. And like I said, there's the textures. There's the textured 1/2-inch stands. I'm only offering the textured 1/2-inch stands because the whole idea of these is that no matter the size, whether it's the 1/2-inch, the 1-inch, the 2-inch, the 1/2-inch can go on top, right?
Yeah.
So you don't have to have a 3-inch textured one. You can just take a 1/2-inch textured one and prop it over the top of your 3-inch or your 2-inch or whatever it is. And that way it just allows me to streamline the production process for now.
I love it. Honestly, I think, and again,
one other thing I just want to say, it's not going to be part of the Kickstarter, but it's a post Kickstarter piece that I plan to sell. I haven't finalized the model. That little gun shelf that you were showing?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something you can use the foothold pegs there to stack in a foot shelf. So if you had some characters and you had like a 3-inch stand in the back and you wanted to have it, sitting in line with your GI Joes, you can literally just take one of those things that'll have the foot pegs built into it that sit right into your 3-inch stand, and now you have a gun armory where you can stack and hang your guns and stuff. So that's another piece, and
nice.
that's the piece that makes this. I don't want to say infinity because it's not the right word, but it makes it modular and limitless, because those removable peg stands provide me the ability to design anything I want that can fit on that stand, or multiple stands that can fit into those peg holes. And now you've increased your usage of those stands altogether. And it goes back to like the sports cards, right? So I use this as an example because I have the other samples downstairs, but it's like a little, it's like a card holder. So like if you're into sports cards, right? So you can see this like easel type stand. Yeah. I've designed something like this, but instead of it just being flat, it's a little wider, and it uses the 2 foothold pegs on my stand that you can now put this in. So if you had like a Marvel card of the X-Men from the 90s that you held onto, and you have your X-Men diorama and Wolverine or something, you could set that card right here next to your figures, really kind of like increasing the style of your stand. But again, that's something that's part of the Kickstarter. And then the last piece that's a part of Kickstarter right now, without giving away all the secrets, this is one that I've already spoke to, is that I have a little file card one that, remember, there's that magnet at the top, there's the magnet that goes right here on the top. Well, on the top stand, you don't necessarily need to use that magnet. There's a very simple, kind of triangular, name card plate holder thing where you can slide in like your team name or the player or the action figure or whatever, and you can put it right there. And it's magnetized, uses the magnet, and connects right to that. So it's very versatile, and I would say limitless. The ideas can continue to flow. If there's something someone wants, like you said, right? Like, if the cap to kind of cap it off and just make it flush. If that's something somebody wanted, there's nothing stopping me from designing it.
Well, I love it, and like I said, your Kickstarter, you're kicking off on the 10th for sure.
All things go successfully when it gets through the approval process through Kickstarter. Everything's been submitted, so I've done all my due diligences there. All my bank account stuff's all set up. I've got my business bank accounts. Everything's lined up. They've got a credit card on file, so they can back charge me if they need to. Everything's over to them. So fingers crossed that all goes smoothly. If they push back, need something else, it could potentially be delayed, I guess. But this is my first time running a Kickstarter, so I don't know what to expect. Hopefully it goes through, but I'm not anticipating it, not being approved by the 10th. If it does, if I get any emails that say it's being delayed, I'll be uploading that on there, and I'll be giving, the next known date, if it is. But right now, everything's in their plate.
Well, it sounds like you have everything, as much stuff in a row as you can. So I do want to say thank you. I really wanted to help as much as I can get this out there for you. Like I said, and not just I think it's a great idea. I met you, I talked to you. I just, to me, you seem like a very genuine person.
Thanks, dude.
And again, this whole community should be about helping each other out. I know it's not always about helping each other out. But again, I've met you before. I've talked to you. We've gone back and forth. You just seem like someone who is working 24/7 to try and do something that they really believe in.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I will have the links out as soon as he gets them. I will be pushing out the Kickstarter every chance that I can, because again, I want to see it successful. Just
thank you, brother.
I mean, again,
I appreciate it, man.
I don't really display my figures like that because I have mine in like these action poses.
Yeah.
But I could definitely see myself when you start running out of space. Well, I mean, like the stuff back here, would be perfect, because those are
absolutely.
This is my runoff of figures, and I'm like, I don't have a place for this one.
And when you get those Jada Street Fighter figures and you want to put them up on display, and your He-Man stuff's a little too in the way, and you want to stack them behind, maybe you just need 1 3-inch one right behind it. So
yep.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
Anyway, again, I want to say thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, dude. I appreciate it, man. It's been a great conversation with you, brother.
Oh, again, like I said, it's great. And again, check him out on Instagram, Mr. Wonderful Hexastack. Is there anything else you want to say where they can find you?
For now, I would just say Hexastack on Instagram or Mr. Wonderful on Instagram, either one. I'm much more active on Mr. Wonderful, but I'm trying to build up the presence of Hexastack as a whole. So, thank you. And Lawrence, I appreciate it, man. I think, if I remember, there was a couple people that reached out to me on the Hella Dope call when I was on the call, and you were one of them that was like right there reaching out to me, wanted to talk and stuff. And obviously you and I've had some, good banter back and forth about some other, topics and stuff, but you bringing me on, I really do appreciate it, man. I know you've got a platform here where, a pretty loyal gathering. So, the opportunity to get in front of your people and be able to, share this with them. And hopefully, even if there's just a couple of folks that find this to be something that would benefit them, I appreciate the opportunity and just being able to shoot the shit with you, to be honest. It was good.
Like I said, it's my pleasure. So anyway, we're going to get out of here. Again,
Can I say one more thing?
Yep.
Can I say one more thing? So remember earlier, we talked, if somebody finds my link, to send it to you and I on Instagram, make sure they follow and make sure they subscribe to your channel. As long as they're subscribed to your channel and they send us both the link on Instagram, what we'll do, or what I'll do, is, and I'll ship it to them myself. All they got to do is, please be in the US so I don't have to pay like ridiculous shipping fees. But if the first person to get it to me is going to, and I'll give you from a week from today, you get that to me and Punk or Lawrence here, and I'll go ahead and send those out on behalf of myself and a Punk with Toys here as kind of like a little, thanks for tuning in, little giveaway.
Well, thank you very much. And you guys get on that right now. Shouldn't be that hard, but do your own research. You'll figure out who he is. So anyway, I will
Yep.
see you guys all this Monday night. Have a wonderful night.